What if I told you that every single night for the past 100,000 years, humans have been conducting this same mysterious ritual? A ritual so powerful it can heal diseases, unlock creativity, and even predict the future. A ritual that ancient pharaohs believed was a journey to meet the gods, that Chinese emperors used to govern their vast empires, and that medieval knights practiced as preparation for battle. This ritual is sleep, but not the broken, restless sleep that millions struggle with today. This is the deep, transformative sleep that built civilizations, inspired masterpieces, and sustained our species through ice ages, plagues, and wars. Tonight we are going on the most intimate journey in human history. We will slip into the bedchambers of pharaohs and peasants, emperors and slaves. We will discover why Romans slept in 2 shifts, how Vikings prepared for eternal rest, and what Islamic scholars knew about dreams that modern science is only beginning to understand. We will uncover the secret sleeping rituals of the Maya, the dream prophecies of Aboriginal Australians, and the sleep temples where ancient Greeks literally slept their way to divine wisdom. We will witness how the Industrial Revolution shattered humanity's relationship with rest, and how the digital age has created the greatest sleep crisis in our species' history. But this is not just a story about the past. This is about understanding why you toss and turn at night, why your ancestors slept so much better than you do, and what you can learn from 100,000 years of human sleep wisdom to finally find the rest your soul is craving. Before we begin this journey through time, I want to know where you are right now. Are you listening in New York at 2 a.m. unable to sleep? Are you in Tokyo during your lunch break? Are you in London preparing for bed? Tell me in the comments where in the world you are and what time you prefer these deep explorations. What other mysteries of human history keep you awake at night? What stories do you want me to tell next? If this journey helps you understand something new about yourself, about sleep, about what it means to be human, then a gentle like and subscribe helps others find this same peace. And now let our story begin in a time when darkness was not something to fear, but something to embrace. When sleep was not escape from life, but the deepest part of living itself. Close your eyes and travel back to a world that existed before words, before art, before anything we would recognize as civilization. Travel back 100,000 years to the vast grasslands of Africa, where small bands of early humans are discovering something that will change our species forever. They are learning how to truly sleep. Picture this ancient scene. The sun disappears behind acacia trees, painting the sky in shades of fire. Orange fades to purple, purple dissolves into black, and somewhere in that transformation from day to night, something magical happens. The first humans begin to understand that darkness is not their enemy, but their teacher. These early humans gather in small groups of perhaps 20 or 30 souls. They have discovered fire, but it is still new, still precious. They feed it carefully with dry grass and fallen branches, watching the flames dance against the darkness. Like living spirits, each person in the group has a role in the nightly ritual. The strongest adults position themselves at the edge of the circle, facing outward toward the unknown. The children nestle in the center, wrapped in animal skins that still smell of the hunt. The elders, those rare individuals who have survived 30 or 40 years, share the warmth between the fire and the children. But here is what makes this scene extraordinary. These people are not just surviving the night. They are transforming it into something sacred. They are creating the first bedroom in human history. Not a room with walls, but a circle of trust surrounded by infinite darkness. They sleep on beds of dried grass that they have gathered with intention, choosing the softest stalks, weaving them into simple mats. They use stones warmed by the fire as the first heating systems, placing them near their bodies to provide warmth through the cold hours. They arrange themselves not randomly, but with the wisdom of generations who have learned that survival requires cooperation, even in unconsciousness. The children sleep deepest, their small bodies curled against their mothers, breathing in rhythm with the adults around them. The adults sleep lighter, always listening for the crack of a branch that might signal a prowling predator, always ready to wake the group and tend the fire. The elders sleep lightest of all, their bodies no longer needing as much rest, their minds serving as the early warning system for the entire community. But something remarkable happens in these first sleeping circles. Something that had never occurred in the millions of years of animal evolution that preceded them. These humans begin to dream, not just the simple memory processing dreams of other mammals, but complex symbolic dreams that their waking minds can remember and share. Around the dying embers of the fire, in the quiet hours before dawn, they begin to tell each other what they saw in sleep. A river that flowed upward toward the sky. A mammoth that spoke in human language. A tree that bore fruit shaped like stars. These dreams are not random neural firing, but the birth of human imagination, the first stirrings of symbolic thought. Listen to the sounds that filled their nights. Water dripping from stone overhangs. The distant roar of lions claiming their territory. The whisper of wind through grass. The steady breathing of 30 people sleeping in perfect trust. No mechanical hum, no electronic buzz, no artificial light. Just the heartbeat of the earth itself providing the rhythm for humanity's first lullaby. Their sleep was not continuous, as ours tries to be. They woke naturally when the fire needed tending, when a child cried, when their bodies told them it was time to check the darkness. This was not insomnia but wisdom. The night had its own rhythms, and they learned to follow them. When dawn approached, painting the eastern sky pale gold, they woke not to alarms but to light itself. Their circadian rhythms were perfectly synchronized with the rotation of the earth. Their bodies knew when rest had restored them, when the night had done its healing work, when it was time to return to the business of living. These early humans were discovering something that we have largely forgotten. That sleep is not empty time but active time. Not absence of consciousness, but a different kind of consciousness. Not escape from the world, but deeper engagement with it. In their dreams, they rehearse the next day's hunt. They process the emotional trauma of losing a member of the group to predators. They solved problems that their waking minds could not resolve. They communicated with ancestors and spirits and the living consciousness of the landscape itself. Archaeological evidence suggests that even our earliest human ancestors had rituals around sleep. They arranged their sleeping areas with intention. They shared warmth and protection. They developed the first bedtime stories, passing down survival information through tales told in the darkness. The most remarkable thing about this first human sleep was its complete integration with the natural world. These people did not fight against the rhythms of day and night, but surrendered to them. They did not see darkness as something to be conquered, but something to be honored. They understood that sleep was not weakness, but strength, not unconsciousness, but a different way of being conscious. Their sleep was dreamless sleep and dream-filled sleep. Sleep that healed bodies exhausted from walking 20 miles across savannah. Sleep that processed minds overwhelmed with the constant vigilance required for survival. Sleep that bonded communities through shared vulnerability and mutual protection. And in those dreams, those first truly human dreams, our ancestors began to imagine possibilities beyond their immediate survival. They dreamed of tools that did not yet exist, of shelters that had never been built, of stories that had never been told. They dreamed the future into being. This is where human sleep began, not in bedrooms or on mattresses, but in circles of trust under star-filled skies, around fires that connected earth to sky through the sacred medium of flame, in communities that understood sleep was too important to be done alone, too precious to be taken for granted, too powerful to be anything less than reverent. The genetic memory of this first sleep still lives in your body. The need for safety and warmth. The rhythm that syncs with darkness and light. The understanding that rest is not solitary but communal. That dreams are not private but shared. That sleep is not escape but the deepest form of engagement with the mystery of being alive. As the great ice sheets began their slow advance across the northern continents, our ancestors faced a choice that would define human civilization for the next 40,000 years. They could migrate south following the warmth, or they could stay and adapt. They could surrender to the ice, or they could learn to sleep within it. The choice they made changed everything. Picture a limestone cave somewhere in what we now call southern France. The year is 30,000 BCE, and outside the cave entrance, winter wind howls with a fury that could strip flesh from bone. The temperature has not risen above freezing for 3 months. But inside this cave, something unprecedented is happening. Humans are not just surviving the Ice Age. They are thriving within it. The cave itself has been transformed into humanity's first architecture, not built architecture, but discovered and perfected architecture. The entrance has been partially sealed with stacked stones and packed earth, creating a windbreak that allows smoke to escape while keeping warmth inside. The floor has been leveled with carefully placed flat stones. The walls have been painted with images of bison and horses and human hands outlined in red ochre. But it is the sleeping area that reveals the true genius of these Ice Age humans. The back of the cave, furthest from the entrance and closest to the Earth's heat, has been arranged with mathematical precision. Sleeping platforms made from stacked stone slabs covered with layers of fur create beds that are both insulated from the ground and elevated to catch the warm air that rises from the fire. These Ice Age sleepers have discovered something that modern science calls thermal layering. They wear clothing made from multiple animal skins, each layer serving a specific function. Next to their skin, thin, soft furs that wick moisture away from the body. Over this, thicker furs that trap air and provide insulation. On the outside, waterproof outer layers made from processed hides that shed rain and snow. Their bedding is equally sophisticated. Mammoth fur provides the base layer, dense and water resistant. Ground sleeping mats are woven from grass and reeds, collected during the brief summer months. Sleeping robes are constructed from multiple deer hides sewn together with sinew thread, so fine it rivals modern textile production. But the most remarkable aspect of Ice Age sleep is not the technology, but the community. These caves house extended family groups, sometimes 50 or 60 people spread across multiple generations. Grandparents sleep closest to the fire, their old bones needing the most warmth. Parents and children arrange themselves in family clusters. Adolescents and young adults sleep near the cave mouth, serving as the first line of defense against any threat that might penetrate their sanctuary. The social organization of sleep in these caves reveals sophisticated understanding of human psychology. The youngest children sleep between their parents, never alone, never unprotected. Older children gradually move outward as they mature, learning to sleep with increasing independence, but always within the protective circle of the community. Elders are honored with the warmest spots, and their sleep is guarded by the entire group. Listen to the sounds that filled these Ice Age nights. The crackle of fires fed with carefully hoarded wood. The rhythmic breathing of 60 people sleeping in harmony. The occasional snore or sleep talking that created a kind of unconscious conversation. The drip of water from limestone stalactites. The distant howl of wolves that served not as threat, but as lullaby, reminding the cave dwellers that they were safe while the predators remained outside in the cold. These Ice Age humans developed the first systematic understanding of sleep. Cycles. They recognized that different people had different sleep needs and different optimal timing. Some were natural early risers, best suited for morning hunting expeditions. Others were natural night watchers, perfect for tending fires and maintaining vigilance during the dangerous dark hours. The community organized itself around these individual circadian preferences. Their dreams during this period were unlike anything that had come before. As humans spent more time in caves decorated with painted animals, their dream life became incredibly rich and complex. They dreamed in color and symbol. They dreamed collectively, sometimes sharing similar dreams. Within the same cave community, they developed the first dream interpretation traditions, understanding that sleep visions could provide guidance for hunting, predicting weather, and making important group decisions. The cave paintings themselves may have been inspired by dreams. Many of the animals depicted on cave walls appear to be moving, morphing, changing in ways that suggest dream logic rather than waking observation. Some archaeologists believe these paintings were created during altered states of consciousness, possibly including the hypnagogic state between sleeping and waking. Ice Age sleep was also the birthplace of the first sleep medicine. These ancient humans understood that certain plants could promote restful sleep. They gathered chamomile and valerian during summer months, drying and storing them for winter use. They discovered that warm beverages before sleep could help the body transition from wakefulness to rest. They developed massage techniques using animal fats and plant oils to relax muscles strained from daily survival activities. The children of these Ice Age communities learned sleep as a survival skill. Parents taught them how to sleep quietly, how to wake silently if danger threatened, how to share warmth without disturbing others, how to recognize the different stages of sleep in themselves and others. Sleep education was as important as learning. To make tools or track animals. Perhaps most remarkably, these Ice Age cave dwellers maintained their connection to natural circadian rhythms, despite living in environments with limited natural light. They used fires not just for warmth, but as artificial suns, dimming them gradually as night progressed to simulate the natural transition from day to night. They organized their cave communities so that sleeping areas received indirect firelight that would not interfere with natural melatonin production. The seasonal variations in Ice Age sleep were dramatic. During the long winter months when daylight lasted only a few hours, these humans would sleep up to 12 or 14 hours per day, entering a kind of human hibernation that conserved energy and resources. During the brief, intense summers, when daylight lasted 18 or 20 hours, they would sleep only 4 or 5 hours, taking advantage of every moment of warmth and light for hunting, gathering, and food preparation. Their winter dreams were particularly powerful. During these extended sleep periods, Ice Age humans reported dreams of incredible complexity and duration. Dreams that seemed to last for days. Dreams that continued night after night like serialized stories. Dreams that provided detailed information about distant hunting grounds, weather patterns, and the movements of animal herds. The Ice Age also gave birth to the first sleep tools. Carved bone and antler objects that served as pillows, designed to keep the head elevated and prevent the sleeper from rolling into the fire. Weighted fur blankets that provided consistent pressure and warmth throughout the night. Even primitive versions of white noise machines, using hollow bones and animal bladders to create consistent sounds that masked the irregular noises that might disturb sleep. These caves where our ancestors slept through the Ice Age were more than shelters. They were laboratories where humans experimented with every aspect of rest and dreaming. They were universities where knowledge about sleep was accumulated, tested, and passed down through generations. They were temples where the mystery of consciousness was explored every single night for 40,000 years. The legacy of Ice Age sleep lives on in our DNA. Our need for security and warmth during rest. Our tendency to sleep more deeply when we feel safe. Our ability to share sleep space with loved ones. Our connection between dreams and creativity all trace back to those painted caves where humans first learned to transform the harshest environments into sanctuaries of rest. Along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, where humanity first learned to write, to build cities, and to organize society on a massive scale, sleep was transformed from survival strategy into sacred science. Between the two rivers that gave Mesopotamia its name, the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians developed the world's first systematic understanding of dreams, prophecy, and the mysterious connection between sleep and divine wisdom. Picture the great ziggurat of Babylon at sunset, its massive stepped sides, catching the last light of day as thousands of oil lamps begin to flicker to life throughout the city below. In the highest chamber of this artificial mountain, the king prepares for a sleep that will determine the fate of empires. For in ancient Mesopotamia, royal dreams were not private experiences but state communications, messages from the gods that could authorize wars, predict harvests, and guide the expansion of civilization. The Mesopotamian bedroom was designed as a portal between worlds. Built from sun-dried brick and decorated with glazed tiles that depicted protective deities, the sleeping chamber faced east toward the rising sun, toward rebirth, toward the daily miracle of light conquering darkness. The bed itself was raised on a platform that symbolically elevated the sleeper between earth and heaven, between the human realm and the divine. But the most extraordinary aspect of Mesopotamian sleep culture was the development of the world's first dream interpretation industry. Professional dream readers called Shailu lived in the temples and palaces, spending their lives studying the symbolic language that the gods allegedly spoke during human sleep. These were not superstitious fortune tellers, but sophisticated scholars who maintained libraries of dream symbolism that contained thousands of recorded visions and their historical outcomes. The Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's oldest surviving work of literature, revolves around prophetic dreams that guide the hero through his supernatural adventures. When Gilgamesh dreams of a falling star, his companion Enkidu interprets it as a sign that a great friend will come into his life. When he dreams of an axe falling from heaven, Enkidu explains that this represents a mighty ally who will help him achieve great deeds. The entire epic teaches that dreams are not random brain activity, but meaningful communications that can guide human destiny. Archaeological excavations have uncovered thousands of cuneiform tablets that record Mesopotamian dreams spanning more than 3,000 years. These clay documents reveal that ancient Mesopotamians classified dreams into multiple categories: dreams sent by gods that contained divine messages, dreams caused by demons that were meant to mislead and confuse, dreams from the dead that allowed communication with ancestors, dreams of the future that revealed what was destined to occur, dreams of the past that helped interpret current events. The most sophisticated dreamers in Mesopotamian society practiced what they called incubation sleep, deliberately sleeping in temple chambers, specifically designed to promote prophetic dreams. These sacred sleeping areas were built with precise acoustics that amplified the sounds of running water and sacred music. They were decorated with images of dream deities and filled with the smoke of specially prepared incense that was believed to attract divine visions. King Gudea of Lagash, around 2100 BCE, recorded one of history's most detailed prophetic dreams that guided the construction of a massive temple complex. In his dream, the god Ningirsu appeared and provided architectural plans including precise measurements, foundation layouts, and decoration instructions. The temple was built exactly according to the dream specifications and stood for over 1,000 years. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II, famous for the Hanging Gardens and the conquest of Jerusalem, was also renowned for his prophetic dreams. The biblical book of Daniel describes how the king demanded that his advisors not only interpret his dreams, but first tell him what he had dreamed, proving that they had genuine access to divine knowledge rather than mere interpretive skill. Mesopotamian mothers developed elaborate bedtime rituals designed to protect their children from evil dreams and encourage visits from beneficial spirits. They would burn specific incense combinations, sing protective lullabies, and place amulets under the sleeping child that were inscribed with prayers to Mamu, the goddess of dreams. These rituals were passed down through generations, creating family traditions that could last for centuries. The medical understanding of sleep in ancient Mesopotamia was remarkably sophisticated. Physicians recognized that dreams could both reflect and influence physical health. They prescribed specific sleeping positions for different ailments, recommended particular foods and drinks to promote healing dreams, and developed environmental modifications that could improve sleep quality and dream content. During the height of Babylonian power, the palace maintained a staff of professional dream interpreters who worked in shifts to ensure that royal dreams could be analyzed immediately upon waking. These court officials maintained detailed records of the king's sleeping patterns, tracking correlations between diet, exercise, political stress, and dream frequency. They developed what may have been humanity's first systematic approach to sleep optimization. The ordinary citizens of Mesopotamian cities also participated in dream culture, though with less elaborate resources. Families would gather before sleep to share the day's events and discuss any dreams from the previous night. Children learned to remember and report their dreams. Parents taught basic dream interpretation skills that could help with daily decisions like when to plant crops or which routes to take for trading expeditions. The Mesopotamian week was organized around sleep and dream cycles. The 7-day period that we still use today originated from Babylonian astrology. where each day was associated with a particular planet, deity, and optimal sleep timing. The Sabbath concept of a weekly rest day also traces back to Mesopotamian. Understanding that regular periods of extended sleep were necessary for maintaining connection with divine guidance. Perhaps most remarkably, ancient Mesopotamia developed the concept of shared dreaming. Family members would sometimes report nearly identical dreams that occurred on the same night. Communities experiencing crisis would gather in temples to sleep collectively, hoping to receive group guidance from the gods. Even enemies would sometimes agree to resolve conflicts based on dream messages that both sides accepted as divine. Arbitration. The fall of Babylon in 539 BC marked the end of this extraordinary dream civilization, but its influence spread throughout the ancient world. The Persian Empire that conquered Mesopotamia adopted many Babylonian dream practices. The Greeks and Romans incorporated Mesopotamian dream interpretation into their own cultures. The Hebrew prophetic tradition was heavily influenced by Mesopotamian understanding of dreams as divine communication. Today, as we struggle with sleep disorders and dream interpretation, ancient Mesopotamia reminds us that for thousands of years, humans understood sleep as far more than biological maintenance. It was communication with forces beyond normal consciousness. It was a source of wisdom that could guide entire civilizations. It was a nightly opportunity to participate in the larger patterns of cosmic order. The clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia preserve humanity's first scientific approach to sleep and dreaming. Systematic observation, careful record keeping, and practical application of sleep knowledge to improve individual and collective life. They remind us that our ancestors did not see dreams as meaningless brain static, but as one of the most important aspects of human experience, deserving of careful study, lifelong learning, and deep respect. Along the Nile River, where the desert meets the fertile black soil that gave Egypt its ancient name Kemet, a civilization arose that would fundamentally transform humanity's relationship with sleep, death, and the mysterious journey of consciousness. For the ancient Egyptians, sleep was not rest but rehearsal, not unconsciousness but preparation for the ultimate voyage that every soul must eventually take. Picture the bedchamber of Pharaoh Ramesses II as the sun sets behind the pyramids of Giza. The walls are covered with hieroglyphic texts from the Book of the Dead, detailed instructions for navigating the afterlife that the pharaoh will practice every night in his dreams. Golden amulets surround his bed, each one inscribed with spells designed to protect his traveling soul. A small boat model sits nearby, representing the solar bark that will carry him through the underworld until dawn. The Egyptian understanding of sleep was based on their sophisticated concept of the human soul, which they believed consisted of multiple components. The Ka was the life force that remained with the body. The Bea was the personality that could travel during sleep. The Ash was the transformed soul that could exist in both physical and spiritual realms. Sleep was the nightly opportunity for the Beo to practice its eventual permanent separation from the body. Every Egyptian, regardless of social status, prepared for sleep as if preparing for death. This was not morbid obsession, but practical spirituality, recognizing that consciousness continued during sleep and that the experiences of the sleeping soul were as real and important as waking activities. They bathed their bodies with water from the sacred Nile. They anointed themselves with oils of frankincense, myrrh, and lotus. They dressed in clean linen that had been blessed by priests. They arranged their sleeping space to face eastward, the rising sun toward rebirth. The most remarkable aspect of Egyptian sleep culture was the development of dream incubation temples, where people would travel from across the ancient world to receive healing, guidance, and prophecy through divinely inspired dreams. The Temple of Imhotep near Memphis was perhaps the most famous of these dream healing centers, where patients would sleep in sacred chambers and receive treatment instructions through visions. The process of therapeutic dreaming at these temples was highly sophisticated. Patients would first undergo purification rituals, including fasting, dietary restrictions, and ceremonial bathing. They would then spend several days in the temple complex, participating in prayers, making offerings, and receiving instruction from priest-physicians about how to prepare their minds for healing dreams. Finally, they would sleep in the Abaton, the sacred sleeping chamber where the god was believed to visit patients and provide direct medical guidance. Archaeological evidence shows that these Egyptian dream temples achieved remarkable healing success rates. Inscriptions describe cures for blindness, paralysis, mental illness, and chronic pain that occurred after patients received dream instructions about treatments. Many of these dream therapies involved combinations of diet, exercise, herbal medicine, and psychological counseling that modern medicine recognizes as genuinely effective. The Egyptian medical papyri contain detailed descriptions of sleep disorders and their treatments. The Edwin Smith Papyrus describes what we now recognize as sleep apnea. The Ebers Papyrus includes prescriptions for insomnia that combine herbal remedies with environmental modifications and stress reduction techniques. Egyptian physicians understood that sleep problems were often symptoms of underlying imbalances that required holistic treatment. Egyptian children learned about sleep and dreaming as part of their basic education. Mothers would tell bedtime stories that were actually instruction manuals for soul travel, describing the landmarks of the underworld, the challenges that traveling souls might encounter, and the protective spells that could ensure safe return to the body. These stories serve the same function as modern parents reading fairy tales, but with the added dimension of preparing children for their nightly spiritual journeys. The wealthy elite of Egyptian society slept in beds that were designed as sacred vessels for soul travel. Made from precious woods and decorated with gold and ivory, these beds were oriented toward specific cardinal directions based on astrological calculations. The headrests were carved with protective deities and inscribed with passages from funerary texts. The mattresses were stuffed with materials that had been blessed by temple priests. But even ordinary Egyptians participated in this sacred approach to sleep. Farmers and craftsmen would prepare simple altars beside their sleeping areas where they would place offerings of bread, beer, and flowers for the gods who protected sleeping souls. They would recite prayers before sleep and keep small amulets under their pillows. They understood that every night's sleep was practice for the final journey, and that treating sleep casually was spiritually dangerous. The Egyptian calendar was organized around sleep and dream cycles. The night was divided into 12 hours, each associated with a particular deity and optimal for specific types of dreams. The lunar month was considered especially powerful for prophetic dreaming, while certain days were believed to be dangerous for sleep and required extra protection. Priests maintained detailed records of the relationship between astronomical events and dream content. Egyptian art depicts sleep and dreaming with remarkable sophistication. Wall paintings show sleeping figures surrounded by protective deities, with their Bayo souls depicted as birds with human heads traveling through fantastic landscapes. Funerary papyri include detailed maps of the dream world with instructions for navigating the various regions that souls might encounter during sleep. The mummification process itself was understood as preparation for eternal sleep. The elaborate preservation of the body was intended to provide a secure anchor for the soul during its extended dreaming in the afterlife. The grave goods placed in tombs included everything the deceased might need during their sleeping journey, including food, water, clothing, tools, books, and even board games for entertainment during rest periods in the underworld. The famous Egyptian Sphinx, with the body of a lion and the head of a human, was associated with dream prophecy. Lions were considered guardians of sleep because of their ability to rest deeply while remaining alert to danger. The Sphinx represented the ideal of conscious sleeping, awareness that could remain alert to spiritual realities while the physical body rested. Egyptian women developed particularly sophisticated sleep practices because they were often considered more naturally gifted at soul travel and prophetic dreaming. Female priests, called the adoratresses of the god, specialized in dream interpretation and therapeutic sleep healing. These women maintained temple libraries containing thousands of recorded dreams and their meanings, serving as humanity's first systematic dream databases. The decline of ancient Egyptian civilization marked the end of perhaps the most spiritually sophisticated sleep culture in human history. But their influence spread throughout the ancient world. Greek dream incubation practices were directly derived from Egyptian models. Roman sleep medicine incorporated Egyptian therapeutic techniques. The early Christian church adopted many Egyptian concepts about the spiritual significance of dreams and sleep. Modern sleep research has begun to validate many ancient Egyptian insights about the connection between sleep and healing. The understanding that dreams can provide psychological insight, the recognition that sleep environment affects dream content, the awareness that sleep preparation rituals can improve rest quality, all were understood and practiced by Egyptian priests and physicians thousands of years before modern science rediscovered these principles. As we struggle today with sleep disorders and the search for meaning in our dreams, ancient Egypt reminds us that sleep is far more than biological maintenance. It is the nightly opportunity for consciousness to explore realms beyond ordinary waking awareness. It is the time when healing happens not just in the body, but in the soul. It is the bridge between life and death, between the known and the unknown, between human limitation and divine possibility. In the valleys where the Indus River flows through what we now call Pakistan and northwest India, there once existed cities so perfectly planned, so beautifully balanced, that even today archaeologists marvel at their sophistication. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira. These were not just urban centers, but living experiments in human harmony, where every aspect of daily life, including sleep, had been designed to support optimal human flourishing. What makes the Indus Valley civilization unique in the history of human sleep is that they appear to have solved the fundamental problem that still plagues us today: how to live together in large numbers without destroying the peace that allows for genuine rest. Their cities housed tens of thousands of people, yet maintained the tranquility of small villages. They created urban environments that supported rather than disrupted natural sleep patterns. Picture walking through the streets of Mohenjo-Daro at sunset 4,000 years ago. The city is laid out in a perfect grid, with wide, straight avenues that catch cooling breezes from the Arabian Sea. The houses are built from fired brick that absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly at night, creating natural climate control. The streets are clean, swept daily by teams of municipal workers. The air is filled with the gentle sounds of flowing water from the sophisticated drainage system that removes waste and provides background white noise that masks disruptive sounds. The Indus Valley House was designed as a sleep sanctuary. The main entrance never faced the street directly, preventing noise and dust from entering the living areas. Instead, houses opened onto private courtyards where fountains and small gardens created microclimates that were cooler and more peaceful than the surrounding urban environment. The bedrooms were always located in the interior of the house, furthest from any source of disturbance. Archaeological excavation reveals that Indus Valley bedrooms were marvels of environmental engineering. The walls were built with air gaps that provided insulation from both heat and sound. The floors were raised slightly above ground level, preventing moisture and providing air circulation underneath the sleeping surface. Windows were positioned to catch cross breezes during the night, while excluding the harsh afternoon sun. The beds themselves were simple but sophisticated. Wooden platforms raised about 18 inches off the floor were strung with rope webbing that provided flexible support. Cotton mattresses, yes, cotton, which the Indus Valley people were among the first to cultivate, were filled with materials that could be easily cleaned and replaced. Simple cotton sheets and pillows completed the sleeping arrangement. But what made Indus Valley sleep remarkable was not the technology but the social organization. Archaeological evidence suggests that, unlike other ancient civilizations, there were no vast disparities in sleep quality between rich and poor. The largest houses were perhaps 3 times the size of the smallest, but all contained similar sleeping arrangements. All had access to the same quality of water, sanitation, and noise control. The city planning itself supported good sleep. The industrial areas where pottery and metalwork were produced were located downwind from residential neighborhoods. Public baths and waste management systems prevented the disease and odor problems that plagued other ancient cities. The streets were wide enough to prevent buildings from blocking airflow, but not so wide as to create wind tunnels that would disturb rest. Children in Indus Valley cities learned to sleep as naturally as they learned to walk. There is no evidence of sleep anxiety or sleep disorders in the archaeological record. No complex rituals to ward off nightmares. No elaborate preparations for bed. No fear of the dark. Instead, sleep appears to have been a simple, natural transition that happened at the appropriate time without struggle or resistance. The Indus Valley people developed what may have been humanity's first understanding of chronobiology, the science of biological rhythms. Their cities were oriented to take advantage of natural light cycles. Public activities were scheduled to complement rather than fight against circadian rhythms. Work began at dawn when alertness was naturally high. The main meal was eaten at midday when digestion was optimal. Rest periods were scheduled during the hot afternoon hours when energy naturally declined. Evidence suggests that the entire society observed regular sleep schedules. Business activities ceased at sunset. Social gatherings ended at appropriate times for sleep preparation. Even children appear to have followed consistent bedtime routines that were supported by the entire community rather than being seen as individual family responsibilities. The most remarkable aspect of Indus Valley sleep culture was its sustainability. This civilization maintained high-quality rest for its entire population for over 1,000 years without apparent decline or crisis. They created a society where good sleep was not a luxury enjoyed by elites, but a basic standard of living maintained for everyone. The absence of monumental architecture in Indus Valley cities is telling. There are no massive palaces that would have required night shifts of workers to construct. No elaborate temples that would have demanded overnight religious ceremonies. No military fortifications that would have required constant vigilance. Instead, these people invested their collective energy in creating environments where ordinary daily life, including sleep, could be lived with extraordinary quality. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization around 1900 BCE remains one of archaeology's great mysteries. Climate change may have altered the course of rivers, making their sophisticated water management systems obsolete. Invasion by nomadic peoples may have disrupted their peaceful urban lifestyle. Whatever the cause, their disappearance represents one of humanity's greatest losses. The end of a society that had achieved something we are still struggling to recreate: sustainable, high-quality sleep for entire populations. The Indus Valley people left us no deciphered written records, no religious texts or philosophical treatises. But their cities themselves are texts that can be read by anyone who understands the language of human needs. Their urban planning speaks of a deep understanding that individual well-being depends on collective harmony. Their architecture demonstrates that peaceful sleep requires not just comfortable beds, but entire environments designed to support rest. Modern urban planners studying Indus Valley cities have identified design principles that could revolutionize contemporary sleep culture. Neighborhood planning that minimizes noise pollution. Housing design that maximizes natural climate control. Community organization that supports rather than disrupts circadian rhythms. These ancient insights offer hope that we might someday recreate the conditions that allowed an entire civilization to sleep in peace. As we struggle today with urban sleep disorders, with the challenge of maintaining rest quality in crowded, noisy, polluted cities, the Indus Valley civilization stands as proof that it is possible for large numbers of humans to live together in ways that support rather than destroy the sleep that makes life worth living. They solved problems we are still working on. They achieved standards we are still trying to reach. They created a kind of urban paradise where even the simple act of falling asleep each night was supported by the wisdom, love, and care of an entire civilization. In the Forbidden City in Beijing, as the last light of day fades behind the golden roof tiles of the Palace of Heavenly Purity, the Emperor of China prepares for sleep that will determine the fate of a quarter of humanity's population. For in ancient China, the quality of the Emperor's rest was understood to directly affect the harmony of the entire cosmos. The Son of Heaven must sleep in perfect balance, or the whole world would fall into chaos. Chinese civilization developed, perhaps, the most sophisticated understanding of sleep as medicine that the world has ever known. For over 4,000 years, Chinese physicians, philosophers, and emperors studied the intricate relationships between rest, consciousness, and cosmic harmony. They created a science of sleep so detailed, so precise, that it included specific sleeping positions for different seasons, optimal bedtimes for various temperaments, and dream interpretation systems that guided imperial policy. Picture the imperial bedchamber during the Tang Dynasty, when Chinese civilization reached its golden age. The room faces south toward the warming energy of Yang. The bed is positioned to align with magnetic north, ensuring harmony with Earth's natural energy. Fields. The mattress is filled with silk woven from cocoons that were fed only on mulberry leaves grown in imperial gardens. The pillows are made from jade and porcelain, designed to keep the head cool while allowing qi energy to flow freely through. the neck and spine. But the most remarkable aspect of Chinese imperial sleep was the understanding that rest must be earned through proper living. The emperor did not simply lie down and expect good sleep. Instead, his entire day was choreographed to create the optimal conditions for restorative rest. Morning exercises that balanced yin and yang energies. Midday meals timed to support rather than interfere with digestion. Afternoon activities that gradually decreased in intensity as the body prepared for sleep. Evening rituals that calmed the mind and released the tensions accumulated during the day. Chinese medicine recognized that different organs have different, optimal times for rest and activity. The liver, they believed, performed its cleansing work most effectively between 1 and 3 a.m. The kidneys recharged their vital essence between 5 and 7 p.m. The heart found its deepest rest between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Sleep was not uniform unconsciousness, but a carefully orchestrated symphony of organ restoration that could only occur when the timing was precisely coordinated. The Chinese developed the concept of sleep as cultivation. The same word they used for agricultural farming, yang, was applied to the careful tending of consciousness during rest. Just as a farmer must prepare soil, plant seeds at the right time, and provide optimal growing conditions, a good sleeper must prepare the mind, choose appropriate rest timing, and create environmental conditions that support consciousness cultivation. Chinese mothers sang lullabies that were actually medical prescriptions disguised as poetry. Sleep, little dragon, let your liver rest. Let your kidneys store their essence. Let your heart slow its beating like distant temple drums. Let your mind become like still water that reflects the moon without disturbing its surface. These songs taught children that sleep was not escape from life, but deeper engagement with the fundamental processes that sustain life itself. The imperial court maintained a staff of sleep physicians whose only responsibility was monitoring, optimizing the emperor's rest patterns. These doctors tracked correlations between lunar cycles and dream content, seasonal changes and sleep depth, atmospheric pressure, and sleep quality. They maintained detailed records spanning centuries that documented how external conditions affected imperial sleep and, by extension, the stability of the entire empire. Chinese philosophers developed the concept of conscious sleeping, the ability to maintain awareness even while the body rested. Taoist monks practiced techniques that allowed them to observe the transition between waking and sleeping states. They learned to maintain a thread of consciousness that could witness dreams without interfering with them. They developed meditation practices that could be performed while lying down, that transformed sleep from unconsciousness into a deeper form of meditation. The Chinese bedroom was designed as a microcosm of the universe. The bed represented Earth, positioned between heaven, the ceiling, and the underworld, the floor. Windows were positioned to allow the first morning light to enter from the east, awakening the sleeper naturally. Colors were chosen based on 5-element theory, with each season requiring different color palettes to support optimal rest. Water. Features were included to provide gentle sounds that masked disruptive noise while symbolizing the flow of qi, energy through the sleeping space. During the Song Dynasty, Chinese inventors created the world's first mechanical alarm clocks, but these were not used to wake sleepers abruptly. Instead, they were designed to gradually increase light and sound over a 30-minute period, mimicking the natural sunrise. The Chinese understood that jarring awakenings disrupted the delicate transition between sleeping and waking consciousness, potentially causing qi stagnation that could lead to illness. Chinese dream interpretation reached extraordinary levels of sophistication. The Book of Changes, or I Ching, included detailed instructions for using dreams to make important decisions. Personal dream symbols were understood to change meaning based on the dreamer's age, health, constitution, and current life circumstances. Professional dream interpreters required years of training in Chinese medicine, astrology, and psychology before they were qualified to analyze the sleeping visions of important officials. The concept of seasonal sleep variations was central to Chinese practice. During spring, sleepers should retire slightly later and wake earlier to harmonize with the increasing yang energy. Summer required the shortest sleep periods, with afternoon naps to compensate for the intense yang energy that made deep nighttime sleep difficult. Autumn called for gradually increasing sleep duration as yin energy began to predominate. Winter required the longest sleep periods, sometimes 10 or 12 hours, allowing the body to conserve energy during the most yin time of year. Chinese physicians prescribed sleep like medicine for specific ailments. Anxiety was treated with meditation practices that could be performed while lying down. Digestive problems required sleeping on the right side to optimize liver function. Respiratory issues needed elevated sleeping positions to improve breathing patterns. Depression was addressed through dream cultivation practices that encouraged uplifting sleep visions. The Chinese understanding of sleep extended beyond individual health to encompass family and social harmony. Couples were taught to synchronize their sleep cycles to support marital harmony. Parents learned to coordinate their rest schedules with their children's natural rhythms. Extended families arranged their sleeping quarters to optimize the energy flow throughout the entire household. During the Ming Dynasty, the imperial palace included specialized sleep chambers for different purposes. The Chamber of Peaceful Dreams was used for regular rest. The Hall of Prophetic Visions was reserved for dream incubation when important decisions required divine guidance. The Pavilion of Restoration housed sick emperors whose sleep was being used as medical treatment. Each chamber was designed with specific acoustics, lighting, and energy flow to support its particular function. Chinese sleep science also included sophisticated understanding of what we now call sleep hygiene. They recognized that caffeine consumed after midday would interfere with nighttime rest. They understood that large meals close to bedtime disrupted sleep quality. They knew that emotional stress had to be consciously released before sleep could be truly restorative. They developed progressive relaxation techniques that allowed systematic release of physical tension. The practice of Qigong breathing exercises specifically designed for bedtime preparation became central to Chinese sleep culture. These exercises coordinated breath, movement, and mental focus to gradually slow down all body systems, creating optimal conditions for deep rest. The most advanced practitioners could fall asleep within minutes of lying down, regardless of external circumstances, because they had learned to consciously induce the physiological changes that naturally lead to sleep. Chinese literature is filled with accounts of prophetic dreams that guided imperial decision-making. The Tang Dynasty Emperor Xuanzong received detailed instructions in dreams for reforming the tax system. The Song Dynasty Emperor Taizu reported dreaming the location of a hidden library that contained crucial military strategies. Even ordinary citizens were encouraged to pay attention to their dreams as potential sources of guidance for family and business decisions. The Chinese approach to children's sleep was particularly sophisticated. Children were understood to have different sleep needs at different stages of development. Infants required almost constant sleep, interrupted only for feeding. Toddlers needed both nighttime sleep and afternoon naps, carefully timed to support. Rapid brain development. School-aged children required sleep schedules that supported learning and memory consolidation. Adolescents needed later bedtimes to accommodate their shifting circadian rhythms. Traditional Chinese medicine included detailed diagnostic techniques based on sleep patterns. Physicians could assess a patient's overall health by observing their sleeping position, the sounds they made during sleep, their facial expressions while dreaming, and the timing of their natural awakening. Changes in sleep patterns were often the first sign of developing health problems, allowing for early intervention before symptoms became severe. The Chinese contribution to world sleep culture extends far beyond individual techniques. They developed the first systematic understanding of sleep as preventive medicine, the recognition that good rest was not luxury but necessity for maintaining health. They created the first comprehensive sleep hygiene protocols that integrated physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of rest. They demonstrated that sleep quality could be optimized through environmental design, lifestyle modification, and conscious practice. As Chinese civilization evolved through different dynasties, the core understanding of sleep as cultivation remained constant. Whether during times of peace or war, prosperity or hardship, unity or fragmentation, the Chinese maintained their commitment to sleep as one of the pillars supporting individual health, family harmony, and cosmic order. Modern sleep medicine is only beginning to validate what Chinese physicians understood thousands of years ago, that sleep is not passive unconsciousness, but active restoration. That optimal rest requires harmony between individual needs and environmental conditions, that sleep quality affects not just personal health, but social harmony, that dreams are not random neural activity, but meaningful communications from the deeper wisdom of body and mind. The Chinese approach to sleep reminds us that rest is not something that just happens to us, but something we can consciously cultivate, improve, and use as a foundation for optimal living. Their understanding that sleep affects everything from personal health to cosmic harmony offers a vision of rest as sacred practice worthy of lifelong study, dedication, and respect. Under the marble columns of the Parthenon, as Athens settles into evening quiet, we encounter a civilization that transformed sleep from simple biological function into subject worthy of the greatest philosophical minds in human history. Greeks, those inventors of democracy, logic, and theater, approached sleep with the same intellectual rigor they brought to mathematics and ethics. But they also understood something that pure reason cannot grasp, that sleep is where the soul touches mysteries the waking mind cannot comprehend. Picture Plato's Academy at dusk as the great philosopher concludes his daily teachings. Students gather in small groups, continuing discussions about justice, beauty, truth, and the nature of reality. But as night approaches, these conversations take on a different quality. They become preparation for sleep, understood not as escape from philosophical inquiry, but as continuation of it through different means. The Greeks developed the revolutionary idea that sleep was not empty time, but thinking time of a different sort. Aristotle wrote extensively about sleep, recognizing it as essential for learning and memory consolidation. He observed that students who slept well after lessons retained information better than those who stayed awake. He theorized that sleep was when the mind organized and integrated the day's experiences, separating important insights from trivial details. Greek physicians, following the teachings of Hippocrates, understood sleep as fundamental to the balance of humors that maintained health. They prescribed specific sleep schedules for different temperaments. Melancholic individuals required longer sleep periods to balance their excess of black bile. Sanguine people needed shorter, more active rest to prevent stagnation of blood. Choleric personalities required cool sleeping environments to counteract their excess heat. Phlegmatic constitutions needed warm, dry sleeping conditions to balance their moisture. But perhaps the most remarkable Greek contribution to sleep culture was the development of therapeutic dreaming at healing temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine. These dream temples, scattered throughout the Greek world from Epidaurus to Pergamon, offered what may have been humanity's most sophisticated integration of sleep medicine, psychology, and spiritual healing. The process of temple sleep healing was extraordinarily detailed. Patients would first undergo purification, including ritual bathing, dietary restrictions, and confession of moral transgressions. They would then spend several days in the temple complex, participating in prayers, making offerings, and receiving preliminary counseling from priest-physicians. Finally, they would sleep in the Abaton, the sacred sleeping hall where Asclepius was believed to visit patients in dreams and provide direct healing instructions. The healing success rates at these Greek dream temples were remarkable enough that they continued operating for over 1,000 years. Inscriptions record cures for blindness, paralysis, chronic pain, mental illness, and conditions that modern medicine would consider incurable. Patients reported dreams in which the god performed surgery, provided herbal prescriptions, recommended lifestyle changes, or simply touched them with healing energy. Greek athletes, those perfectly conditioned bodies celebrated in marble sculptures, understood sleep as essential training. They maintained strict sleep schedules, retiring early and waking with the sun. They knew that muscle growth and repair happened during sleep, that coordination and reaction time suffered without adequate rest. They developed recovery sleep techniques that allowed maximum adaptation to intense physical training. The most sophisticated Greek thinkers practiced what they called philosophical sleep, going to bed with questions or problems, allowing the sleeping mind to work on them through the night. Mathematicians would sleep with geometric puzzles beside their beds. Poets would invite dreams to bring new metaphors and rhythms. Political leaders would seek guidance for difficult decisions through dream consultation. Greek mothers sang lullabies that were actually philosophy lessons disguised as gentle songs. Sleep, little one, and dream of the good, the true, the beautiful. Let wisdom visit you in the land where thoughts are born. Learn in your sleep what cannot be taught in waking. These songs taught children that sleep was educational opportunity, not time lost from learning. The symposium, those famous Greek drinking parties, were carefully timed to end before sleep, allowing wine and philosophical conversation to settle into peaceful contemplation. The Greeks understood that the transition into sleep should be gradual, gentle, allowing the mind to process intellectual and social stimulation without rushing into unconsciousness. Greek dream interpretation developed beyond simple symbolism into sophisticated psychological analysis. They recognized that dream content often reflected the dreamer's emotional state, moral conflicts, and unconscious desires. They understood that recurring dreams might indicate unresolved psychological issues that required conscious attention. They developed techniques for what we might now call lucid dreaming, maintaining awareness during dreams to explore philosophical questions. The Greek concept of the examined life extended into sleep. They encouraged people to reflect on their dreams, not through superstitious interpretation, but through thoughtful consideration. What patterns appear? What emotions surface? What might the sleeping mind be trying to communicate to waking consciousness? They understood that self-knowledge required attention to both waking and sleeping experiences. Greek architecture supported optimal sleep design. Bedrooms in wealthy homes were positioned to be quiet, cool, and well ventilated. Windows faced east to catch morning light, encouraging natural awakening. Courtyards provided peaceful soundscapes of flowing water and gentle breezes. The Greeks understood that environment significantly affected both sleep quality and dream content. The philosophical schools developed different approaches to sleep and dreaming. The Stoics emphasized using sleep time for moral reflection, examining the day's actions and preparing for ethical living. The Epicureans focused on sleep as pleasure to be optimized through environmental modification and lifestyle design. The Platonists saw sleep as opportunity for the soul to commune with eternal truths unavailable to ordinary waking consciousness. Greek physicians prescribed sleep as medicine with remarkable specificity. They recommended particular sleeping positions for different ailments, specific bedtimes for various constitutions, environmental modifications for optimal rest. They understood that sleep problems were often symptoms of deeper imbalances requiring comprehensive treatment of body, mind, and spirit. The Olympic Games included competitions, not just of physical prowess, but of optimal sleep preparation. Athletes who could maintain peak performance over multiple days of competition invariably demonstrated superior sleep skills. Recovery between events required not just physical rest, but mental techniques that maximize the restorative power of limited sleep time. Greek tragedy and comedy both explored sleep as dramatic device. Characters who could not sleep represented moral turmoil or divine punishment. Peaceful sleep indicated harmony with cosmic order. Prophetic dreams advanced plot lines and revealed character motivations. The Greeks understood that how someone sleeps reveals fundamental truths about their inner life. The decline of classical Greek civilization marked the end of perhaps the most intellectually sophisticated approach to sleep in the ancient world. But Greek insights about sleep as learning time, as healing opportunity, as philosophical practice spread throughout the Mediterranean world and continue to influence sleep medicine, psychology, and philosophy to this day. Modern sleep research validates many Greek observations about the relationship between sleep, learning, and health. The understanding that dreams can provide psychological insight, the recognition that sleep environment affects rest quality, the awareness that sleep preparation rituals improve outcomes, all were understood and practiced by Greek physicians and philosophers over 2,000 years ago. The Greek approach to sleep reminds us that rest is not time stolen from productive life but essential foundation for optimal thinking, learning, and living. Their integration of physical health, mental cultivation, and spiritual development through sleep practices offers a model for approaching rest as holistic wellness rather than simple biological maintenance. As we struggle today with sleep disorders in our overstimulated world, the Greek example suggests that good sleep requires not just comfortable beds, but intellectual frameworks that help us understand why rest matters. Philosophical practices that prepare the mind for sleep, and community support that honors rather than undermines the importance of adequate rest. The Greeks taught us that sleep is too important to be left to chance, too valuable to be wasted through ignorance, and too central to human flourishing to be treated as mere unconsciousness. They showed us that the examined life must include examination of sleep, that wisdom requires attention to both waking insights and dreaming revelations, that the good life must be lived both in consciousness and in the mysterious realm of rest. As the sun sets behind the 7 hills of Rome, painting the marble columns of the Forum in shades of gold and crimson, the greatest empire in human history prepares for sleep. But Roman rest was unlike anything that had come before, organized, efficient, disciplined, even in surrender to unconsciousness. The Romans, those master builders of roads, aqueducts, and laws, approached sleep with the same systematic engineering they brought to conquering the known world. Picture the villa of a wealthy Roman senator as evening approaches. Water flows through hypocaust heating systems beneath the floors, warming the house from below. Slaves light oil lamps throughout the rooms, their steady flames creating pools of golden illumination that will burn throughout the night. The family retires to private bedrooms, a luxury that Roman engineering and prosperity made possible for the expanding middle class. The Roman bedroom, or cubiculum, was designed as a precision instrument for rest. The bed, called a lectus, was elevated high off the floor on a frame of wood, bronze, or even silver for the wealthiest citizens. The mattress was constructed with multiple layers: wool for insulation, feathers for softness, rose petals for fragrance. Linen sheets woven so finely they were nearly transparent covered the sleeper, while woolen blankets provided warmth. But the most revolutionary Roman innovation was the schedule. While other cultures slept when darkness fell and woke with dawn, Romans divided their night into military-style watches. They practiced first sleep, retiring after dinner, then waking naturally in the middle of the night for prayer, reading, quiet conversation, or business correspondence before returning to second sleep until dawn. This segmented sleep pattern served Roman lifestyle perfectly. During the quiet midnight hours, when the city's daytime noise had ceased, Romans would engage in activities that required concentration and calm. Letter writing to distant provinces, reviewing legal documents, planning military campaigns, reading, philosophy or poetry by lamplight. These midnight hours became some of the most productive and creative periods of Roman daily life. Roman soldiers, those disciplined legions that carved out the empire, maintained strict sleep schedules even in hostile territory. They would construct fortified camps each evening, complete with designated sleeping areas for each rank. Officers slept in separate quarters, but maintained the same segmented sleep pattern as their troops. The Roman military understood that well-rested soldiers were more effective fighters, more reliable sentries, and less prone to the diseases that devastated other armies. The Romans developed the first systematic understanding of sleep as productivity, optimization. Unlike cultures that saw rest as spiritual journey or medical treatment, Romans approached sleep as fuel for imperial expansion. Tomorrow would bring more territories to govern, more laws to debate, more engineering projects to complete. Sleep was the foundation that powered Roman efficiency. Roman physicians, inheriting Greek medical knowledge but adapting it to Roman practicality, prescribed sleep with engineering precision. They recommended specific sleeping positions for different ailments, particular types of bedding for various conditions, detailed sleep schedules optimized for different occupations. They treated sleep disorders not as mystical problems, but as mechanical issues requiring systematic solutions. The hypocaust heating system that warmed Roman buildings represented the world's first climate-controlled sleeping environment. Hot air from underground furnaces circulated through hollow walls and floors, maintaining consistent temperatures throughout the night. This innovation allowed Romans to sleep comfortably, even during harsh winters, expanding the empire's reach into northern climates that would have been unbearable without controlled heating. Roman mothers sang lullabies that were actually civic education. Sleep, little citizen, dream of roads that connect the world, of laws that bring justice, of peace that Roman eagles carry to distant lands, of the glory that comes from serving something greater than yourself. These songs taught children that even rest should serve the greater good of Roman civilization. The public baths, those social centers where Romans gathered to relax and unwind, included specific evening protocols designed to prepare citizens for optimal sleep. Warm water baths to relax muscles, cold plunges to stimulate circulation, massage with scented oils to release tension, quiet conversation to process the day's events. The baths became Rome's equivalent of modern spa treatments, specifically designed to improve sleep quality. Roman architecture reflected sophisticated understanding of sleep environment design. Bedrooms were positioned to be quiet, dark, and well ventilated. Windows faced east to catch morning light, encouraging natural awakening. Thick walls blocked outside noise. Courtyards provided peaceful soundscapes of flowing water and garden sounds. Every detail was planned to support effective rest. The Roman concept of otium, leisurely time that included rest, relaxation, and intellectual pursuits, was considered essential for maintaining the energy required for negotium, business, and civic duties. Romans understood that continuous work without adequate rest led to diminished performance, increased errors, and eventual burnout. They scheduled regular periods of reduced activity that allowed for physical and mental restoration. Roman slaves, despite their difficult circumstances, often had more regular sleep schedules than their masters. Household slaves typically worked during daylight hours and slept through the night without the business concerns that kept wealthy Romans awake. Agricultural slaves followed seasonal rhythms that provided longer rest periods during winter months. Even galley slaves were rotated in shifts that allowed for recovery sleep between rowing periods. The Roman villa was designed to support the sleep needs of extended households that might include family members, clients, freedmen, and slaves. Sleeping areas were organized hierarchically, but all were provided with basic necessities for rest. The Romans understood that household harmony required that everyone, from master to slave, receive adequate sleep to perform their roles effectively. Roman military medicine included detailed understanding of sleep deprivation effects. Army physicians documented how lack of rest affected soldiers' ability to march, fight, and make decisions. They developed strategies for maintaining troop effectiveness during campaigns that required extended periods of reduced sleep. They created rotation systems that ensured critical personnel received adequate rest even during active combat. The Roman approach to dreams was characteristically practical. They maintained records of prophetic dreams that had influenced military or political decisions, but they also understood that most dreams were simply the mind's way of processing daily experiences. Roman physicians prescribed specific activities before sleep to influence dream content, understanding that what happened during waking hours affected sleeping visions. Roman engineering extended to mattress technology. They developed the first box springs, using bronze coils to provide consistent support. They experimented with different filling materials to optimize comfort. They created modular bedding systems that could be adapted for different seasons, climates, and individual preferences. Roman beds were not just furniture, but precision instruments designed to maximize rest efficiency. The decline of Roman political power in the 5th century CE marked the end of perhaps the most systematically organized approach to sleep in ancient history. But Roman innovations in heating, climate control, architectural design, and sleep scheduling influenced European sleep culture for over 1,000 years. Many Roman insights about the relationship between environment, rest, and productivity were not rediscovered until the Industrial Revolution. Modern sleep medicine validates many Roman observations about the importance of environmental control, regular schedules, and the relationship between physical comfort and rest quality. The Roman understanding that sleep affects productivity, that consistent schedules improve rest, that environmental design matters, all anticipated discoveries that modern science would not make until the 20th century. The Roman approach to sleep reminds us that rest can be optimized through systematic observation, careful planning, and consistent application of proven principles. Their integration of individual sleep needs with collective social and military requirements offers insights for modern organizations struggling to balance personal wellness with productivity demands. The Romans taught us that good sleep is not accidental but engineered, that optimal rest requires not just comfortable beds, but entire systems designed to support sleep, that individual sleep quality affects collective performance, and that civilizations rise or fall partly based on how well they enable their citizens to rest and restore themselves for the challenges of daily life. While Europe slumbered in what history calls the Dark Ages, from Baghdad to Cordoba, from Damascus to Cairo, a different kind of illumination lit the world. In the Islamic Golden Age, when knowledge flowed like water through desert gardens, sleep became not merely rest but sacred time for contemplation, prayer, and the deep thinking that would revolutionize human understanding. The call to Isha prayer echoes across the rooftops of Baghdad as the Abbasid caliphs have transformed the city into the intellectual center of the world. In houses built around courtyards where fountains whisper eternal songs, Muslim families prepare for sleep with rituals that honor both prophetic tradition and emerging scientific understanding. Picture these homes built for the desert climate, thick walls that keep the day's heat outside and preserve the night's coolness within. Rooms designed for cross-ventilation, allowing evening breezes to flow through spaces where people rest. Carpets woven with geometric patterns that suggest the mathematical perfection underlying creation. Simple but beautiful furnishings that speak of contentment rather than excess. The Islamic understanding of sleep was shaped by the Prophet Muhammad's own practices, carefully preserved in Hadith literature. Sleep after Isha prayer. Wake before Fajr for night prayer. Rest when rest is needed, but never let sleep become escape from spiritual obligations. This was not rigid scheduling but wise rhythm, honoring both human needs and divine connections. In the great libraries of Baghdad's House of Wisdom, scholars often slept among their books, not from exhaustion but from love of learning. They understood that sometimes the deepest insights come in the quiet hours before dawn, when the mind is rested, but the world is still silent. Many mathematical theorems, philosophical breakthroughs, and poetic verses were first glimpsed in these pre-dawn moments of clarity. Islamic physicians, building on Greek, Persian, and Indian knowledge while adding their own observations, developed sophisticated understanding of sleep's role in health. Al-Razi wrote treatises on sleep disorders that remained authoritative. For centuries, Ibn Sina included detailed discussions of sleep in his medical canon, describing sleep as essential for physical restoration, mental clarity, and spiritual well-being. The Islamic world gave us the beneficial nap, the Qaylula, a midday rest that honored prophetic practice while providing restoration during desert heat. This was not laziness but wisdom, recognizing that human energy follows natural rhythms that should be respected rather than forced. The Qaylula became integrated into daily schedules from Spain to Central Asia. In madrasas, those centers of learning that preserved and expanded human knowledge, students learned to balance intense study with adequate rest. They understood that memorizing the Quran, mastering mathematics, studying astronomy, and developing philosophical arguments all required minds that were properly rested. Sleep was not time stolen from learning, but essential preparation for learning. Perhaps most beautifully, Islamic culture developed the understanding that sleep could be worship. The intention to sleep in order to be better able to serve Allah, to study creation, to help people. This transformed rest from selfish indulgence to spiritual practice. The Prophet said sleep is the brother of death, but also taught that proper rest enables better worship and service. Muslim mothers sang lullabies that were actually educational. Sleep now, little scholar, dream of gardens where knowledge grows like flowers, where wisdom flows like rivers, where every question leads to greater understanding of the magnificent patterns Allah has woven through creation. These songs taught children that sleep was preparation for learning. In the hospitals called Bimaristans that the Islamic world built, sleep was prescribed as treatment. Patients rested in quiet rooms with gardens visible through windows, with gentle sounds of water and sometimes music, with fragrances that calmed the spirit. These physicians understood what modern medicine is rediscovering, that healing happens primarily during sleep. The Islamic contribution to sleep culture was the integration of rest with purpose. Sleep was not empty time, but preparation time for prayer, for learning, for serving the community. It was blessed time when the soul could process the day's lessons and prepare for tomorrow's opportunities. Rest became inseparable from the larger project of human development. Islamic architecture supported better sleep design, courtyards that cooled air naturally through evaporation, thick walls that blocked noise and excessive heat, windows positioned to catch morning light but exclude harsh afternoon sun, wind towers that created natural air conditioning. Every element designed to work with human circadian rhythms rather than against them. The scholars of this golden age understood that different minds had different optimal schedules. Some people were naturally inclined toward early morning prayer and study. Others were night thinkers, better suited for evening contemplation. Both patterns were honored as long as religious obligations were met and community needs were served. In the markets of Cairo and the palaces of Cordoba, in the mosques of Isfahan and the universities of Fez, people slept with a particular kind of peace, the peace that comes from living in alignment with both divine guidance and natural law. The peace of minds constantly growing and souls constantly being refined through knowledge and practice. The Islamic understanding of dreams was sophisticated and practical. Dreams could be divine communication, but they could also be processing of daily experiences or suggestions from lower spiritual forces. Proper interpretation required knowledge of the dreamer's circumstances, character, and spiritual state. Dreams were taken seriously, but not superstitiously. The scholars of this era also recognized that sleep environments affected both rest quality and dream content. They recommended specific orientations for beds, particular scents for sleeping, areas, appropriate lighting levels for optimal rest. They understood that external conditions influenced internal experiences during sleep. Islamic medicine included detailed analysis of different types of insomnia and appropriate treatments. For each, worry-based sleeplessness was addressed through spiritual practices and community support. Physical discomfort was treated through diet, exercise, and environmental modification. Spiritual restlessness was calmed through increased devotion, study, and service to others. The concept of balanced living included balanced sleeping. Neither excessive sleep that led to spiritual laziness, nor insufficient sleep that impaired worship, study, and service. The Prophet taught moderation in all things, including rest, finding the middle path that supported both physical health and spiritual development. During Ramadan, the month of fasting, Muslims developed sophisticated approaches to maintaining sleep quality while adapting to dramatically altered eating and drinking schedules. They learned to nap strategically during daytime hours to compensate for shortened nighttime sleep. They discovered that spiritual practices could provide energy that partially compensated for reduced rest. The Islamic Golden Age produced the first systematic studies of sleep and dreams that integrated religious wisdom, medical knowledge, and empirical observation. They documented correlations between different types of sleep disturbances and various physical, emotional, and spiritual conditions. They developed treatment protocols that address the whole person rather than just symptoms. The Mongol invasions of the 13th century that destroyed Baghdad and other centers of Islamic learning marked the end of this golden age of sleep science. But Islamic approaches to rest as spiritual practice, as medical treatment, and as preparation for service spread throughout the Muslim world and influenced European sleep culture during the Renaissance. Modern sleep medicine is rediscovering many insights that Islamic physicians understood centuries ago. The importance of regular sleep schedules, the connection between sleep quality and immune function, the role of environment in rest optimization, the understanding that sleep problems often reflect deeper life imbalances. The Islamic approach to sleep reminds us that rest is not secular activity, but can be integrated into the largest questions of human purpose and meaning. Their understanding that sleep should serve not just individual health, but community welfare and spiritual development offers a vision of rest as sacred practice rather than mere biological maintenance. As we struggle today with sleep disorders in our fragmented, individualistic culture, the Islamic Golden Age suggests that optimal rest requires not just personal sleep hygiene, but communities that support rather than undermine healthy sleep patterns, spiritual frameworks that give meaning to rest, and daily rhythms that honor rather than fight against natural biological cycles. The Islamic contribution to sleep wisdom was the integration of rest into the complete life of worship, learning, and service, showing that sleep need not be escape from meaningful living, but essential preparation for engaging life with energy, wisdom, and compassion. In the long, dark centuries when Europe struggled to emerge from the ruins of Rome, sleep became something entirely new, a refuge from uncertainty, a brief escape from lives that were often brutal, unpredictable, and short. In stone cottages and wooden halls, in monastery cells and castle chambers, medieval Europeans developed a relationship with rest that was shaped by fear, faith, and the fundamental uncertainty of existence. Picture a winter night in a medieval village, somewhere in what we now call France. Snow lies thick against walls of houses built from timber and mud. Between these humble dwellings, families gather not just for warmth, but for survival, sharing. Breath, body heat, and the fragile flame that must burn through darkness or death might claim them before dawn. Medieval sleep was communal sleep. Privacy was luxury few could afford. Entire families slept together in single rooms, sometimes in single beds. Children nestled between parents. Grandparents rested nearby. Servants and apprentices shared common sleeping areas. This was not lack of sophistication, but practical wisdom, shared warmth, shared protection, shared vigilance against dangers that darkness might unleash. The medieval bed was precious possession, often mentioned specifically in wills and past. Through generations, a wooden frame strung with rope, covered with straw mattresses and woolen blankets that had been carded, spun, and woven by household women. The wealthy might have feather beds, but most Europeans slept on whatever softness they could create from available materials. What made medieval sleep unique was its relationship with mortality. This was age of plague, warfare, famine, and sudden death. Sleep required courage because unconsciousness meant vulnerability. In such world, rest became act of faith, surrendering control to God and trusting in divine protection through vulnerable hours of darkness. Medieval Christians developed elaborate bedtime rituals designed not just to prepare for rest, but to seek divine protection. They would cross themselves, recite prayers, sprinkle holy water on sleeping areas, place religious relics under pillows. These were not superstitious gestures, but practical psychology, recognizing that feeling spiritually protected was essential for peaceful rest. The most fascinating aspect of medieval European sleep was its division into first sleep and second sleep. People would retire shortly after sunset, sleep for several hours, then wake naturally around midnight. These midnight hours were not considered insomnia, but valuable time for prayer, intimate conversation between spouses, contemplation of daily events, or preparation for tomorrow's challenges. During these midnight wakings, much of the intimate life of medieval Europe unfolded. Couples would discuss family concerns, financial worries, hopes for children, in whispered conversations that built emotional bonds. Children would wake and listen to adult conversations, learning about adult responsibilities and concerns. It was often during these quiet hours that important family decisions were made. In monasteries across Europe, monks practiced the night office, rising at midnight for prayers, then returning to sleep until dawn. This was not seen as sleep disruption, but as honoring the full cycle of day and night, recognizing that spiritual life required both rest and vigil, both withdrawal from world and engagement with divine mystery. Medieval dreams were taken seriously but fearfully. People believed dreams could be messages from God, temptations from devil, or warnings about future events. They would seek interpretation from priests or wise women, trying to understand what their sleeping minds had encountered in mysterious realm between waking and death. The Black Death that swept across Europe in 14th century transformed sleep once again. People who had watched neighbors die overnight became afraid to sleep too deeply, afraid that death might claim them in their vulnerability. Sleep became lighter, more vigilant, accompanied by more prayers and more protective rituals. Medieval mothers sang lullabies that reflected realities of their time, songs about guardian angels, about saints who watched over sleeping children, about Virgin Mary's protection through dark hours. These were not merely religious expressions, but practical psychology, instilling courage needed to surrender consciousness in an uncertain world. The emerging universities of Paris, Oxford, Bologna, and other centers of learning created new sleep culture among scholars. Students slept in communal dormitories, sharing not just space, but ideas. The tradition of late-night scholarly discussions began here, young minds staying awake far into night to debate theology, philosophy, natural science. Medieval Europeans developed practical wisdom about sleep despite harsh conditions. They understood that certain herbs could promote rest: lavender, chamomile, valerian. They arranged sleeping spaces to maximize warmth and minimize drafts. They learned to read signs of illness that might appear in restless sleep, and to care for sick with patience and dedication. The medieval approach to children's sleep was protective but realistic. Children learned early that sleep was privilege to be grateful for, not right to be demanded. They shared beds with siblings or parents, understanding that individual comfort was less important than family survival. They developed ability to sleep in conditions that would challenge modern children. Medieval castle life created different sleep patterns for different social classes. Nobles had private chambers with elaborate beds and warm fires, but even they understood that isolation meant vulnerability. Guards maintained vigilant watch through night. Servants slept near masters, ready to respond to summons. The medieval understanding of sleep's seasonal variations was sophisticated. They recognized that winter required longer sleep periods, both for warmth conservation and because shorter daylight hours naturally encouraged extended rest. Summer brought lighter sleep patterns with more activity during long daylight hours. Medieval Europe also developed understanding of sleep as healing time. Monastery infirmaries and early hospitals included specific protocols for helping sick people rest. Recovery was understood to depend heavily on sleep quality, and sick rooms were designed to be as quiet, peaceful, and comfortable as limited resources allowed. The religious framework of medieval Christianity provided meaning for sleep struggles. Insomnia could be offering to God. Nightmares could be spiritual warfare. Requiring prayer and faith, peaceful sleep was gift to be appreciated, blessing that should inspire gratitude. Sleep difficulties were not just personal problems, but opportunities for spiritual growth. Medieval people understood that sleep was precious precisely because it was fragile. Life could change or end suddenly. Sleep was daily miracle that should never be taken for granted. This understanding gave even simple rest profound meaning, making every peaceful night cause for thanksgiving. The medieval relationship with darkness was complex. Darkness was dangerous, but also sacred time when God was especially present. Night was when angels visited, when saints appeared, when divine mysteries were revealed. Sleep was entry into realm, where ordinary rules did not apply, where anything might happen. As Europe slowly emerged from medieval period into Renaissance, the sleep wisdom accumulated during those difficult centuries provided foundation for more sophisticated approaches to rest. Medieval understanding of sleep as precious gift requiring protection, preparation, and gratitude influenced European sleep culture for centuries. The medieval contribution to sleep history was demonstration that even in most difficult circumstances, humans could create practices that supported rest. They showed that sleep could be maintained through war, plague, and social upheaval, that rest could be found even when external security was impossible. that faith could provide peace that no amount of external comfort could guarantee. Medieval Europe reminds us that sleep is not just about individual comfort, but about community support, spiritual meaning, and the courage required to surrender control in an uncertain world. Their example suggests that even our modern sleep struggles might be approached not just as personal problems, but as opportunities for deeper understanding of what it means to trust, rest, and find peace. As dawn breaks over Florence, painting red-tiled roofs in shades of gold and rose, Europe awakens from its long medieval slumber into something unprecedented. An age when human potential seems limitless, when art and science dance together, when even sleep becomes subject worthy of the greatest minds and most refined sensibilities. The Renaissance transformed everything it touched, including humanity's relationship with rest. For the first time in centuries, sleep was seen not merely as necessity or spiritual obligation, but as something that could be perfected, beautified, optimized, and even studied. Sleep became canvas for human creativity, laboratory for experimentation, and sanctuary for the Renaissance ideal that all aspects of life could be elevated through intelligence, art, and conscious design. Picture Leonardo da Vinci's workshop as the master himself experiments with what he calls polyphasic sleep, taking brief naps every few hours instead of one long night's rest. His notebooks filled with observations about sleep patterns, dream content, and the relationship between rest and creativity. This was Renaissance spirit applied to sleep itself, the belief that even the most basic human functions could be improved through observation, experimentation, and artistic vision. In the palaces of the Medici, in the courts of France, in the homes of successful merchants from Amsterdam to Venice, bedrooms transformed from simple sleeping spaces into works of art themselves. Beds became architectural marvels, carved posts reaching toward painted ceilings, canopies of silk and velvet, mattresses filled with finest down, sheets of linen so fine they were virtually transparent. This luxury was not mere display. Renaissance thinkers understood that environment shapes experience. Beautiful surroundings, they believed, would lead to beautiful dreams, and beautiful dreams would inspire beautiful art. The bedroom became space designed to enhance not just rest but imagination, creativity, and the Renaissance ideal of living as art form. Renaissance physicians, rediscovering and building upon ancient Greek and Roman medical texts, developed new understanding of sleep's relationship to health, creativity, and optimal human performance. They prescribed specific sleeping positions for different temperaments, particular types of bedding for various constitutions, detailed environmental modifications that could improve both rest quality and dream content. Marsilio Ficino, the great Renaissance philosopher, wrote extensively about sleep as source of inspiration. He encouraged artists, scholars, and leaders to keep writing materials beside their beds, ready to capture insights that often came in drowsy moments between sleep and waking. Many Renaissance masterpieces, he claimed, were born in these liminal states where consciousness touched deeper creative sources. The printing press, that revolutionary invention, spread ideas across Europe faster than ever before, also changed sleep culture. For first time, books became affordable enough that middle-class citizens could own them. Reading before sleep became common practice, transforming quiet evening hours into time for education, mental stimulation, and preparation for dreams that might be enriched by new knowledge. Renaissance artists understood relationship between rest and creative work. Painters recognized that quality of light affected their vision, and harsh midday sun was less suitable for detailed work than softer light of morning and evening. Afternoon siesta became not laziness but professional wisdom, allowing artists to work when conditions were optimal while resting when they were not. Renaissance women, particularly those in wealthy families, transformed sleep preparation into elaborate rituals of beauty and refinement. Hair was brushed with silver combs, skin treated with preparations made from almonds, rosewater, and exotic spices. Nightgowns were sewn from finest available fabrics, often decorated with intricate embroidery. Sleep became opportunity to practice Renaissance ideal of beauty in all things, even in unconsciousness. The most sophisticated Renaissance sleepers developed what they called conscious dreaming, techniques for maintaining awareness during dreams, for directing dream content, for using sleep as laboratory for artistic and intellectual exploration. This was not mysticism but applied psychology, recognizing that sleeping mind could access creative resources unavailable to waking consciousness. Renaissance parents began teaching their children that sleep was not empty time, but preparation time for learning, for growth, for becoming best version of themselves. Lullabies became more sophisticated, often incorporating elements of poetry, music theory, and even scientific observation. Children learned that rest was investment in their future rather than escape from present. In universities across Europe, scholars developed new theories about sleep's role in learning and memory. They observed that students who slept well after studying retained information better than those who stayed awake. They began timing lessons to work with natural energy rhythms rather than against them, understanding that optimal learning required respect for biological cycles. The Renaissance also saw beginning of sleep as subject for artistic representation. Paintings of sleeping figures proliferated, not just religious scenes of death or biblical visions, but portraits of sleep as beautiful in itself. Sleeping Venus, sleeping children, sleeping scholars. Renaissance artists found in sleep subject that allowed them to explore both technical skill and emotional depth. Perhaps most significantly, Renaissance developed concept of individual sleep preferences. While medieval people had accepted whatever rest they could manage, Renaissance thinkers began to recognize that different people had different optimal sleep patterns. Early risers and night owls, long sleepers and short sleepers, all were understood as variations on human potential rather than moral failings. The wealthy began to employ sleep consultants, physicians who specialized in creating optimal sleeping conditions for their clients. These early sleep doctors prescribed everything from specific mattress materials to particular room orientations, from dietary modifications to exercise regimens designed to improve rest quality. Renaissance architecture reflected new understanding of sleep's importance to human flourishing. Bedrooms were designed as private sanctuaries, with attention to acoustics, lighting, ventilation, and aesthetic beauty. Windows were positioned to provide natural light awakening while maintaining privacy. Fireplaces were designed to provide warmth without smoke or noise. The Renaissance understanding of dreams moved beyond simple prophecy towards psychological insight. Artists and intellectuals began to recognize that dreams might reflect inner emotional states, unresolved conflicts, and unconscious desires. They developed techniques for dream recall and analysis that anticipated modern psychological approaches. Music became an integral part of Renaissance sleep culture. Lullabies evolved into sophisticated compositions that demonstrated musical theory while soothing listeners. Evening concerts were timed to end at appropriate hours for sleep preparation. Musicians composed specifically for bedtime listening, creating works that facilitated transition from waking consciousness to rest. The Renaissance also brought first systematic studies of sleep disorders. Physicians began documenting different types of insomnia and developing targeted treatments, environmental modifications for some, dietary changes for others, exercise prescriptions for still others. Sleep became personalized medicine, with treatments tailored to individual constitutions and circumstances. Perhaps most importantly, Renaissance demonstrated that sleep could be subject of conscious improvement rather than biological fate. People could study their own rest patterns, identify problems, and implement solutions. This represented fundamental shift from accepting sleep as it was toward actively optimizing rest for better living. Renaissance sleep culture reflected broader philosophy that human beings could improve every aspect of existence through observation, experimentation, and conscious design. Sleep was not separate from project of human flourishing, but essential component of it. Rest became foundation for creativity, learning, and optimal performance. The Renaissance approach to sleep perfectly embodied period's broader values, that human problems could be solved through intelligence and observation, that beauty and function could be integrated, that individual and collective life could be elevated through conscious effort. Sleep was no longer mysterious realm controlled by fate, but natural phenomenon that could be understood and optimized. This period gave us foundation for modern sleep science, understanding that rest is too important to be left to chance, too valuable to be wasted through ignorance, too central to human achievement to be treated as mere biological necessity. Renaissance thinkers showed that sleep deserved same attention given to art, architecture, and philosophical inquiry. The Renaissance transformation of sleep from simple rest to complex art form anticipated many developments in modern sleep culture. The understanding that environment affects rest quality, the recognition that individual differences matter, the awareness that sleep can be consciously improved, all trace back to Renaissance innovations. As Renaissance period ended, its sleep legacy continued to influence European culture, providing foundation for Enlightenment scientific approaches to rest, for romantic emphasis on dreams and imagination, for modern integration of sleep science with practical life optimization. The Renaissance taught us that sleep, like art, can be practiced, refined, and perfected through conscious attention. That rest, like beauty, can be cultivated through environmental design and personal discipline. That dreams, like inspiration, can be invited and honored through proper preparation. The Renaissance sleeper was not passive recipient of whatever rest happened to occur, but active creator of optimal sleep experience, designed to support the highest human aspirations. As reasons light began to illuminate the darkest corners of human ignorance, as scientists peered through telescopes and philosophers questioned everything their ancestors had believed, sleep too came under the microscope of rational inquiry. The age of enlightenment would transform rest from mystery into science, from superstition into system, from chance into choice. Picture Voltaire's bedroom at Ferney, where the great philosopher maintained one of the most famous sleep schedules in European intellectual history: to bed at midnight, awake at 6, but conducting philosophical debates from his bed, demonstrating that intellectual life need not be constrained by conventional social rules. The Enlightenment questioned everything, including traditional assumptions about when, where, and how human beings should sleep. The Enlightenment approached sleep with characteristic rationality. Instead of accepting traditional beliefs about dreams and rest, philosophers and early scientists began to observe, measure, and theorize about what actually happened when human beings slept. Sleep became subject for empirical investigation rather than religious speculation. Benjamin Franklin, that embodiment of Enlightenment practicality, revolutionized sleep science through simple observation and experimentation. He advocated for cool, well-ventilated sleeping environments, often taking what he called air baths, sleeping without clothing with windows open, allowing fresh air to circulate around the body. His contemporaries thought this scandalous. Modern science has proven him remarkably prescient. In the salons of Paris, where intellectual elite gathered to discuss everything from mathematics to music, sleep became a fashionable topic of conversation. Madame de Pompadour held court about optimal timing of rest for creative endeavors. Denis Diderot wrote extensively about sleep's role in memory consolidation. The encyclopedia contained detailed entries about sleep, dreams, and their relationship to human knowledge. The Enlightenment saw birth of modern sleep medicine. Physicians began keeping detailed records of patients' sleep patterns, correlating rest quality with health outcomes. They developed first systematic approaches to treating insomnia, moving beyond superstitious remedies toward empirically based treatments. Dr. William Cullen at University of Edinburgh developed one of first scientific classifications of sleep disorders. He distinguished between different types of sleeplessness and prescribed specific treatments for each, environmental modifications for some, dietary changes for others, exercise regimens for still others. Sleep became personalized medicine based on systematic observation. The wealthy began to employ sleep architects, designers who specialized in creating optimal sleeping environments. These practitioners understood that room temperature, air circulation, noise levels, and light exposure all affected rest quality. They designed bedrooms with scientific precision, using best available knowledge about human physiology. Perhaps most significantly, Enlightenment developed concept of sleep hygiene, idea that good rest was not matter of luck or divine favor, but of intelligent choices and consistent practices. Regular bedtimes, appropriate nutrition, adequate exercise, stress management all became part of rational approach to optimizing human rest. The period's most innovative thinkers began to experiment with their own sleep patterns. Samuel Johnson kept detailed journals of his sleep, trying to correlate rest quality with mood, productivity, and health. David Hume wrote about relationship between sleep and philosophical insight, noting that his best ideas often came during drowsy transition between sleeping and waking. Enlightenment mothers, influenced by new ideas about child development, began to approach their children's sleep more scientifically. Instead of relying solely on traditional lullabies and folk remedies, they observed their children's individual sleep needs and adjusted routines accordingly. The concept of age-appropriate bedtimes began to develop. In emerging industrial cities of England and Northern Europe, factory owners began to recognize that well-rested workers were more productive workers. First systematic studies of sleep, deprivation, and its effects on human performance were conducted in textile mills and other early industrial settings. The Enlightenment also saw development of more sophisticated sleeping accommodations. The four-poster bed reached its peak of design and functionality during this period, providing both privacy and protection from drafts. Mattress technology improved significantly, with new materials and construction techniques creating more comfortable and supportive sleeping surfaces. Coffee houses, those centers of Enlightenment intellectual life, established closing hours that reflected new understanding of sleep's importance. Unlike medieval practice of staying awake as long as candles lasted, Enlightenment society began to recognize that scheduled rest was essential for optimal mental functioning. The Enlightenment contribution to sleep culture was idea that rest could be improved through reason and observation. Instead of accepting poor sleep as fate, Enlightenment thinkers insisted that human beings could study their own rest patterns, identify problems, and implement solutions. This rational approach to sleep perfectly embodied Enlightenment's broader philosophy that human problems could be solved through careful observation, logical thinking, and systematic experimentation. Sleep was no longer mysterious realm controlled by gods or demons, but natural phenomenon that could be understood and optimized through human intelligence. The Age of Enlightenment gave us foundation for modern sleep science, understanding that rest is too important to be left to chance, too valuable to be wasted through ignorance, too central to human flourishing to be ignored by serious thinkers. Their systematic approach to sleep improvement anticipated many developments in contemporary sleep medicine. Enlightenment sleep science also recognized individual differences in optimal rest patterns. Some people were naturally early risers, others were night owls. Some required longer sleep periods, others functioned well on less rest. These variations were understood as natural human diversity rather than moral failings requiring acceptance and accommodation. The period developed first scientific instruments for measuring sleep quality. Early physicians created devices for monitoring breathing patterns during rest. They documented relationship between room temperature and sleep depth. They studied effects of different types of bedding on rest quality. Enlightenment thinkers also began to understand sleep as essential for learning and creativity. They observed that students who slept well after lessons retained information better than those who stayed awake. They noticed that creative insights often came during transition states between sleeping and waking. The Enlightenment approach to dreams was characteristically rational. While not dismissing dreams entirely, they moved away from supernatural interpretations toward understanding dreams as natural brain activity that might reflect daily experiences, emotional states, or physical conditions. Educational reformers of Enlightenment period began to consider sleep's role in learning. They developed school schedules that attempted to work with rather than against natural circadian rhythms. They recognized that overtired students could not learn effectively, regardless of teaching quality. The Enlightenment period also saw first systematic studies of sleep and aging. Physicians documented how sleep patterns changed throughout human lifespan. They developed age-specific recommendations for optimal rest, recognizing that children, adults, and elderly people had different sleep needs. Perhaps most importantly, Enlightenment established principle that sleep could and should be consciously improved through intelligent intervention. This idea that human beings need not passively accept whatever rest they happen to experience, but could actively work to optimize their sleep, became foundation for all subsequent sleep science. The Enlightenment taught us that sleep, like other aspects of human experience, could be subjected to rational analysis, systematic improvement, and conscious optimization. Their legacy continues in modern sleep medicine, which applies scientific method to understanding and improving human rest. As we continue to struggle with sleep disorders and rest optimization in our complex modern world, Enlightenment example reminds us that good sleep is not accident, but achievement. Not luck, but learned skill. Not mystery, but science that can be understood, practiced, and shared with others seeking better rest. The steam whistle that pierced the morning air of Manchester in 1820 announced more than beginning of another workday. It announced the end of humanity's ancient relationship with sleep. For first time in our species' history, machines would dictate when people rested, when they woke, and how much rest they were allowed. The Industrial Revolution would shatter sleep patterns that had been stable for thousands of years. Picture textile workers' cottage in Birmingham as factory bell rings at 4 in morning. Gas lamps flicker to life in windows throughout workers' district. Families rise not when their bodies feel ready, not when sun suggests time has come, but when industry demands their labor. This was beginning of modern sleep crisis, moment when human circadian rhythms collided with mechanical efficiency. The Industrial Revolution transformed sleep from natural process into luxury that many could no longer afford. Factory workers often labored 12 to 16 hours daily, leaving barely enough time for minimal rest. Sleep became something stolen, between shifts rather than something cherished and protected. Mill workers developed what physicians of era called industrial insomnia. Chronic exhaustion combined with inability to sleep deeply when rest was possible. The constant noise of machinery created tinnitus that persisted even when workers left. Factories. The physical strain of repetitive industrial labor caused muscle tension that interfered with relaxation. But industrial age also created unprecedented opportunities for those who could afford them. Rising middle-class managers, engineers, merchants who profited from industrial expansion developed new concepts of domestic comfort that revolutionized sleeping arrangements. Victorian homes featured separate bedrooms for parents and children, sometimes even separate beds for husbands and wives. This was partly due to medical theories about health benefits of sleeping alone, but also reflected new understanding of sleep as private, individual experience rather than communal activity. The period's most significant innovation was spring mattress. Invented in 1860s for first time, sleepers could rest on surfaces that provided both support and comfort, that adjusted to body contours while maintaining structural integrity. This technological advance made quality sleep accessible to anyone who could afford it, creating perhaps for first time in history clear class distinction in sleep quality. Gas lighting, and later electric lighting, extended day far beyond natural sunset. Urban areas began to experience night shift for first time, entire populations working while others slept. Natural rhythm of community rest was broken, replaced by industrial rhythm of continuous production. The Victorian era also saw medicalization of sleep. Physicians began prescribing specific treatments for insomnia, from laudanum, opium dissolved in alcohol, to complex mechanical devices designed to promote rest. First sleep clinics opened in London and New York, offering wealthy patients systematic approaches to improving their rest. Perhaps most significantly, Industrial Revolution created first widespread sleep deprivation in human history. Agricultural societies had always respected natural rhythms, even during busy seasons. But industrial society demanded that human beings adapt to mechanical schedules, regardless of their biological needs. The consequences were immediate and dramatic. Industrial cities experienced epidemics of nervous exhaustion, depression, and physical ailments directly related to inadequate rest. Physicians of era wrote extensively about neurasthenia, condition characterized by fatigue, anxiety, and inability to concentrate, now recognized as chronic sleep deprivation. Factory owners slowly began to recognize that overtired workers were less productive, more accident-prone, and more likely to make costly mistakes. First systematic studies of work hours and productivity were conducted during this period, laying groundwork for modern understanding of sleep's relationship to performance. Child labor created particularly tragic sleep disruption. Children as young as 6 worked in textile mills for 12 or 14 hours daily. Their natural need for extensive sleep was completely ignored, leading to stunted growth, developmental delays, and early death for many young workers. The period also saw development of first alarm clocks, those mechanical devices that would increasingly regulate human sleep patterns. No longer would people wake naturally with sun or sleep until their bodies felt restored. Instead, artificial signals would determine boundaries of rest. Urban noise became a significant factor in sleep quality for first time. Sounds of industrial cities, steam engines, factory machinery, horse-drawn carriages on cobblestone streets created constant background noise that made deep, restorative sleep difficult for many city dwellers. The Victorian middle class responded by developing elaborate bedtime rituals designed to create oases of calm in increasingly chaotic urban environments. Bedrooms were decorated as sanctuaries, with heavy curtains to block street noise, thick carpets to muffle sound, and carefully chosen colors believed to promote tranquility. Children's sleep became a particular focus of Victorian attention. New theories about child development emphasized importance of adequate rest for growing minds and bodies. Nurseries were designed specifically to optimize children's sleep, with attention to ventilation, temperature, and noise control. The Industrial Revolution also created first commuter culture, as people began living in suburban areas while working in urban centers. Daily journey between home and work became part of rhythm of life, affecting when people could sleep and how much rest they could obtain. Railroad schedules imposed new temporal discipline on society. Trains departed at precise times regardless of individual circadian preferences. This mechanical time gradually replaced agricultural time based on sun, and seasons with artificial time based on clock and schedule. Factory discipline extended into homes as workers internalized industrial time consciousness. Even when not at work, people began to think about time in mechanical units rather than natural rhythms. This psychological change affected how people approached sleep, viewing rest as time that must be precisely measured and allocated. The period saw emergence of shift work as factories began operating around clock to maximize profits. Night shift workers discovered that sleeping during day when body expected to be awake was extremely difficult, leading to chronic health problems that industrial medicine was only beginning to understand. Women who worked in textile mills while also managing households experienced double burden that made adequate sleep nearly impossible. They would work long factory shifts, then return home to cook, clean, and care for children. Their sleep deprivation contributed to high rates of illness and early death. The Industrial Revolution also disrupted family sleep patterns. Fathers working different shifts from mothers, children working in factories during hours when they should have been sleeping. Families that had slept together for generations were scattered across different work schedules. Medical understanding of sleep began to change during this period. Physicians started to recognize that sleep problems were often symptoms of larger social and environmental issues rather than individual failings. They began advocating for shorter work hours, better working conditions, and improved urban planning. The development of gaslighting allowed for evening activities that had been impossible before. People could read, work, or socialize after dark, extending their waking hours but often at expense of adequate rest. This was beginning of artificial light disruption of circadian rhythms. Perhaps most tragically, Industrial Revolution marked moment when sleep became viewed as obstacle to productivity rather than foundation for it. Rest was seen as time that could be minimized to increase work output rather than essential human need that should be protected. The period established pattern that continues to affect modern sleep culture, prioritizing economic productivity over biological needs, mechanical schedules over natural rhythms, individual achievement over community rest. Industrial Revolution created many of sleep problems we still struggle with today. Working class families developed strategies for protecting sleep despite industrial pressures. They shared beds to conserve warmth, used heavy curtains to block industrial light and noise, created bedtime routines that helped family members transition from harsh industrial environment to peaceful rest. The Industrial Revolution also saw beginning of sleep as medical specialization. Physicians began to study sleep disorders systematically, documenting relationship between industrial working conditions and various types of insomnia. They developed first treatments specifically designed for industrial sleep problems. Urban planning began to consider sleep needs, though often inadequately. City planners recognized that residential areas should be separated from industrial zones, that noise ordinances were necessary for public health, that adequate housing was essential for worker productivity. The legacy of Industrial Revolution sleep disruption continues to shape modern sleep culture. Many contemporary sleep problems can be traced back to changes that began during this period. Separation of sleep from natural rhythms, individual rather than community approaches to rest, prioritization of productivity over rest, artificial lighting disruption of circadian cycles. Yet Industrial Revolution also created foundations for modern sleep science by demonstrating devastating effects of sleep deprivation on large scale, and motivating systematic study of rest and recovery. By showing what happened when traditional sleep patterns were destroyed, it created urgency to understand and protect human sleep needs. The Industrial Revolution taught us through harsh experience that sleep cannot be indefinitely compressed without serious consequences, that human biology has limits that must be respected, that technology can improve life but can also destroy essential human needs if not implemented thoughtfully. As Thomas Edison flipped the switch that brought electric light to Lower Manhattan in 1882, he may not have realized he was beginning the greatest transformation in human sleep patterns since our species first learned to make fire. For the first time in evolutionary history, darkness became optional. Humans could extend their waking hours indefinitely with the simple flip of a switch. Picture New York City in 1920, its skyline reaching toward clouds, its streets alive with electric signs that turned night into artificial day. Times Square blazed with thousands of light bulbs, creating daylight at midnight. The Great White Way, they called it, and it represented humanity's first victory over the ancient rhythm of day and night. The early 20th century brought first scientific sleep laboratories. Dr. Nathaniel Kleitman at University of Chicago began systematic study of human sleep patterns, using new technologies to measure brain waves, monitor eye movements, and map mysterious landscape of human rest with precision of explorer charting unknown territories. In 1929, Hans Berger invented electroencephalography, allowing scientists to observe brain activity during sleep for first time. These early EEG recordings revealed that sleep was not simple unconsciousness, but complex neurological process with distinct stages, rhythms, and patterns. This discovery began transformation of sleep from mystery into measurable science. The 1930s brought discovery of different sleep stages. Researchers identified light sleep, deep sleep, and something they initially called paradoxical sleep, because brain activity increased even though body remained paralyzed. This paradoxical sleep would later be renamed rapid eye movement sleep when scientists discovered connection between eye movements and dreaming. World War I introduced humanity to industrial-scale sleep deprivation. Soldiers in trenches learned to sleep standing up, to rest in conditions unimaginable to their ancestors, to function on fragments of rest stolen between bombardments. Military physicians began documenting what they called war neurosis symptoms we now recognize as severe sleep deprivation combined with psychological trauma. The post-war period brought unprecedented prosperity to many Western societies, and with it came bedroom revolution. Mass production made comfortable mattresses, quality bedding, and private sleeping quarters available to working-class families for first time in history. American suburban bedroom, with its twin beds and matching knitstands, became symbol of middle-class achievement. Radio broadcasting, beginning in 1920s, created first electronic intrusion into bedroom. Families could now listen to programs from distant cities, bringing outside world into intimate space of sleep preparation. This was beginning of media disruption of bedtime routines that would accelerate throughout 20th century. The 1930s economic depression paradoxically improved sleep patterns for many people. Financial constraints forced families to maintain earlier bedtimes and simpler lifestyles that supported better rest. People walked more, which increased physical fatigue, had fewer entertainment options that competed with sleep, and maintained stronger family routines. World War II brought massive disruption to civilian sleep patterns. Air raid sirens, blackout curtains, underground shelter sleeping created chronic sleep deprivation for entire populations. London Blitz demonstrated that humans could survive extreme sleep disruption for extended periods, but at tremendous cost to health and psychological well-being. The war also accelerated research into sleep and performance. Military needs for alert sentries, effective pilots, and productive factory workers motivated first systematic studies of how sleep loss affected human capabilities. Scientists discovered that even mild sleep deprivation significantly impaired reaction time, judgment, and emotional regulation. Post-war economic boom brought television into American homes by 1950, creating second wave of electronic bedroom invasion. Families began staying awake later to watch programs, disrupting traditional bedtime routines that had existed for generations. Television became first technology specifically designed to capture and hold human attention during hours previously devoted to sleep. The development of shift work in wartime factories continued into peacetime as industrial economy expanded. Workers discovered that sleeping during day when body expected to be awake was extraordinarily difficult, leading to health problems that medical science was only beginning to understand. Air conditioning, invented in early 1900s, but not widely available until mid-century, allowed people to sleep comfortably in climates and seasons that had previously required adaptation to heat. This technological solution to environmental challenges meant that sleep comfort was no longer limited by natural conditions. The automobile transformed sleep patterns by enabling suburban living. People could live farther from work, creating longer commutes that reduced time available for rest. Car culture also created new forms of sleep disruption. Traffic noise, highway construction, and urban sprawl that separated residential areas from natural quiet. Medical understanding of sleep advanced dramatically during this period. Physicians began to recognize sleep disorders as legitimate medical conditions rather than character weaknesses. They identified sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, and other conditions that affected millions of people who had previously suffered without understanding or treatment. The discovery of MA sleep in 1953 by Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman revolutionized understanding of dreams. Researchers learned that dreaming occurred during specific brain states characterized by rapid eye movements, muscle paralysis, and vivid mental imagery. This finding transformed dreams from mysterious spiritual experiences into observable neurological events. Pharmaceutical industry began developing first generation of modern sleep medications. Unlike crude opium preparations of earlier eras, these drugs were designed to work with specific neurotransmitter systems in brain. However, early sleep medications often created dependency and hangover effects that limited their usefulness. The period saw emergence of sleep medicine as medical specialty. First sleep clinics opened, offering comprehensive evaluation and treatment for sleep disorders. Sleep research laboratories proliferated, documenting normal sleep patterns and identifying factors that disrupted healthy rest. Perhaps most significantly, this period established pattern of using technology to solve problems created by other technologies. Electric lights disrupted natural sleep timing, so people developed alarm clocks to regulate artificial wake times. Urban noise interfered with rest, so people created white noise machines to mask disruptive sounds. The era also brought first recognition that modern lifestyle was fundamentally incompatible with healthy sleep patterns evolved over millions of years. Physicians began to document epidemic of sleep disorders in industrialized societies, leading to awareness that technological progress came with biological costs. Social changes during this period affected sleep patterns in complex ways. Urbanization meant that extended families no longer slept in proximity, changing support systems for children and elderly. Women entering workforce created new scheduling challenges for families. Nuclear family structure meant that sleep problems became individual rather than community concerns. The period established sleep as consumer commodity. Companies began marketing specific products to improve rest. Mattresses, pillows, bedding, sleep aids, bedroom furnishings. Each promised to solve sleep problems through purchase rather than lifestyle change. Educational institutions began to recognize sleep's importance for learning, though implementation lagged behind understanding. Researchers documented that students who slept well performed better academically, but school schedules continued to ignore adolescent circadian rhythms that naturally shifted toward later bedtimes. The era brought first systematic studies of sleep and aging, documenting how rest patterns changed throughout human lifespan. This research led to understanding that elderly people were not lazy for napping during day, but were adapting to age-related changes in sleep architecture. By 1950, foundation was laid for modern sleep science. Understanding sleep was not uniform unconsciousness, but complex process essential for memory consolidation, immune function, emotional regulation, and cellular repair. Yet society was creating conditions that made healthy sleep increasingly difficult to achieve. The period from 1879 to 1950 represented transition from traditional sleep culture based on natural rhythms to modern sleep crisis, characterized by artificial lighting, electronic entertainment, and industrial scheduling. This transition created many sleep problems we still struggle with today, while also providing scientific tools needed to understand and address these challenges. The electric night had arrived, bringing both unprecedented opportunities to extend human capabilities and unprecedented threats to fundamental biological needs that had sustained our species for millions of years. The stage was set for modern sleep crisis that would intensify throughout rest of 20th century. We now arrive at our own time, perhaps the most paradoxical era in sleep history. We know more about sleep than any previous generation yet. We sleep worse than almost any society in recorded history. We have created the most comfortable sleeping environments in human experience, yet struggle more than our ancestors to find rest. We live in an age of sleep science and sleep crisis, age of optimization and deprivation, age of understanding and confusion. Picture bedroom of 2024. Blackout curtains blocking urban light pollution, white noise machines masking traffic sounds, smart thermostats maintaining optimal temperature, mattresses engineered with space-age materials. Never before has humanity possessed such sophisticated tools for creating perfect sleeping environments. Yet never before have so many people struggled so dramatically with simple act of falling asleep. The television, which entered American homes in 1950s, quickly became central feature of bedtime routine. Families began staying awake later to watch programs, shifting sleep schedules in ways that seemed harmless but accumulated into significant circadian disruption. Blue light emitted by television screens suppressed melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep even after programs ended. The 1960s brought birth control pill, which altered women's hormonal cycles including sleep patterns. Women using hormonal contraception experienced changes in sleep architecture, REM patterns, and dream content that medical science did not fully understand. Young women reported increased insomnia, mood changes, and sleep disturbances that were often dismissed as psychological rather than physiological. Space race of 1960s produced unexpected insights into human sleep. NASA research on astronaut circadian rhythms revealed how deeply sleep patterns were connected to natural light cycles. When astronauts experienced multiple sunrises and sunsets daily, their sleep became severely disrupted, teaching scientists about importance of consistent light-dark cycles for healthy rest. The 1970s energy crisis inadvertently improved American sleep patterns. The 1930s economic depression paradoxically improved sleep patterns for many people. Financial constraints forced families to maintain earlier bedtimes and simpler lifestyles that supported better rest. People walked more, which increased physical fatigue, had fewer entertainment options that competed with sleep, and maintained stronger family routines. World War II brought massive disruption to civilian sleep patterns. Air raid sirens, blackout curtains, underground shelter sleeping created chronic sleep deprivation for entire populations. London Blitz demonstrated that humans could survive extreme sleep disruption for extended periods, but at tremendous cost to health and psychological well-being. The war also accelerated research into sleep and performance. Military needs for alert sentries, effective pilots, and productive factory workers motivated first systematic studies of how sleep loss affected human capabilities. Scientists discovered that even mild sleep deprivation significantly impaired reaction time, judgment, and emotional regulation. Post-war economic boom brought television into American homes by 1950, creating second wave of electronic bedroom invasion. Families began staying awake later to watch programs, disrupting traditional bedtime routines that had existed for generations. Television became first technology specifically designed to capture and hold human attention during hours previously devoted to sleep. The development of shift work in wartime factories continued into peacetime as industrial economy expanded. Workers discovered that sleeping during day when body expected to be awake was extraordinarily difficult, leading to health problems that medical science was only beginning to understand. Air conditioning, invented in early 1900s, but not widely available until mid-century, allowed people to sleep comfortably in climates and seasons that had previously required adaptation to heat. This technological solution to environmental challenges meant that sleep comfort was no longer limited by natural conditions. The automobile transformed sleep patterns by enabling suburban living. People could live farther from work, creating longer commutes that reduced time available for rest. Car culture also created new forms of sleep disruption. Traffic noise, highway construction, and urban sprawl that separated residential areas from natural quiet. Medical understanding of sleep advanced dramatically during this period. Physicians began to recognize sleep disorders as legitimate medical conditions rather than character weaknesses. They identified sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, and other conditions that affected millions of people who had previously suffered without understanding or treatment. The discovery of MA sleep in 1953 by Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman revolutionized understanding of dreams. Researchers learned that dreaming occurred during specific brain states characterized by rapid eye movements, muscle paralysis, and vivid mental imagery. This finding transformed dreams from mysterious spiritual experiences into observable neurological events. Pharmaceutical industry began developing first generation of modern sleep medications. Unlike crude opium preparations of earlier eras, these drugs were designed to work with specific neurotransmitter systems in brain. However, early sleep medications often created dependency and hangover effects that limited their usefulness. The period saw emergence of sleep medicine as medical specialty. First sleep clinics opened, offering comprehensive evaluation and treatment for sleep disorders. Sleep research laboratories proliferated, documenting normal sleep patterns and identifying factors that disrupted healthy rest. Perhaps most significantly, this period established pattern of using technology to solve problems created by other technologies. Electric lights disrupted natural sleep timing, so people developed alarm clocks to regulate artificial wake times. Urban noise interfered with rest, so people created white noise machines to mask disruptive sounds. The era also brought first recognition that modern lifestyle was fundamentally incompatible with healthy sleep patterns evolved over millions of years. Physicians began to document epidemic of sleep disorders in industrialized societies, leading to awareness that technological progress came with biological costs. Social changes during this period affected sleep patterns in complex ways. Urbanization meant that extended families no longer slept in proximity, changing support systems for children and elderly. Women entering workforce created new scheduling challenges for families. Nuclear family structure meant that sleep problems became individual rather than community concerns. The period established sleep as consumer commodity. Companies began marketing specific products to improve rest. Mattresses, pillows, bedding, sleep aids, bedroom furnishings. Each promised to solve sleep problems through purchase rather than lifestyle change. Educational institutions began to recognize sleep's importance for learning, though implementation lagged behind understanding. Researchers documented that students who slept well performed better academically, but school schedules continued to ignore adolescent circadian rhythms that naturally shifted toward later bedtimes. The era brought first systematic studies of sleep and aging, documenting how rest patterns changed throughout human lifespan. This research led to understanding that elderly people were not lazy for napping during day, but were adapting to age-related changes in sleep architecture. By 1950, foundation was laid for modern sleep science. Understanding sleep was not uniform unconsciousness, but complex process essential for memory consolidation, immune function, emotional regulation, and cellular repair. Yet society was creating conditions that made healthy sleep increasingly difficult to achieve. The period from 1879 to 1950 represented transition from traditional sleep culture based on natural rhythms to modern sleep crisis, characterized by artificial lighting, electronic entertainment, and industrial scheduling. This transition created many sleep problems we still struggle with today, while also providing scientific tools needed to understand and address these challenges. The electric night had arrived, bringing both unprecedented opportunities to extend human capabilities and unprecedented threats to fundamental biological needs that had sustained our species for millions of years. The stage was set for modern sleep crisis that would intensify throughout rest of 20th century. We now arrive at our own time, perhaps the most paradoxical era in sleep history. We know more about sleep than any previous generation yet. We sleep worse than almost any society in recorded history. We have created the most comfortable sleeping environments in human experience, yet struggle more than our ancestors to find rest. We live in an age of sleep science and sleep crisis, age of optimization and deprivation, age of understanding and confusion. Picture bedroom of 2024. Blackout curtains blocking urban light pollution, white noise machines masking traffic sounds, smart thermostats maintaining optimal temperature, mattresses engineered with space-age materials. Never before has humanity possessed such sophisticated tools for creating perfect sleeping environments. Yet never before have so many people struggled so dramatically with simple act of falling asleep. The television, which entered American homes in 1950s, quickly became central feature of bedtime routine. Families began staying awake later to watch programs, shifting sleep schedules in ways that seemed harmless but accumulated into significant circadian disruption. Blue light emitted by television screens suppressed melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep even after programs ended. The 1960s brought birth control pill, which altered women's hormonal cycles including sleep patterns. Women using hormonal contraception experienced changes in sleep architecture, REM patterns, and dream content that medical science did not fully understand. Young women reported increased insomnia, mood changes, and sleep disturbances that were often dismissed as psychological rather than physiological. Space race of 1960s produced unexpected insights into human sleep. NASA research on astronaut circadian rhythms revealed how deeply sleep patterns were connected to natural light cycles. When astronauts experienced multiple sunrises and sunsets daily, their sleep became severely disrupted, teaching scientists about importance of consistent light-dark cycles for healthy rest. The 1970s energy crisis inadvertently improved American sleep patterns. When oil prices skyrocketed and electricity became expensive, many families returned to earlier bedtimes and more regular sleep schedules. Sleep researchers noted measurable improvements in national sleep quality during this period of forced energy conservation. Personal computers, introduced in 1980s, began digital revolution that would fundamentally alter human sleep patterns. For first time, intellectually stimulating activities were available 24 hours daily in private homes. Night shift work moved from factories into home offices. People began staying awake later, engaged in computing activities that provided mental stimulation precisely when brains should be preparing for rest. The 1990s brought internet, and with it possibility of global connectivity that never slept. Email, websites, and early social media created expectation of constant availability. Phrase 24/7 entered common usage, reflecting society that was beginning to view continuous wakefulness as not just possible but desirable. Shift work became increasingly common as service economy expanded. Workers in healthcare, retail, food service, and other industries were required to work during hours when human biology expected them to sleep. Medical understanding of shift work-sleep disorder began to develop, but workplace policies rarely accommodated biological needs of night workers. The smartphone, introduced in 2007, may represent single greatest disruption to human sleep patterns. In our species' history, these devices, carried by billions of people and kept within arm's reach during sleep, created first generation of humans who were perpetually available to stimulation, interruption, and engagement. Social media platforms employed teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists to create experiences that were literally addictive, designed to trigger same reward pathways in brain as gambling and substance abuse. These platforms profited from attention, and sleep was ultimate competitor for human attention. Sleep tracking technology promised to optimize rest through data. Devices measured movement, heart rate, breathing patterns, and sleep stages with remarkable precision. Yet irony was profound. People who monitored their sleep obsessively often slept worse than those who simply trusted their bodies to regulate rest naturally. The gig economy shattered traditional work schedules for millions of people. Uber drivers worked when passengers needed rides, regardless of circadian rhythms. Online freelancers served clients in different time zones, often requiring work during what should be sleeping hours. 24-hour global economy demanded human availability that biology could not sustainably provide. COVID-19 pandemic accelerated many digital age sleep trends. Working from home blurred boundaries between rest space and workspace. Video calls replaced in-person meetings, increasing screen time dramatically. Social isolation led to increased reliance on digital entertainment and social connection, often late into night. Revenge bedtime procrastination, phrase that originated in China, but quickly spread globally, described phenomenon of staying awake late as way to reclaim personal time after days dominated by work and obligations. People sacrificed sleep to feel they had some control over their own time, even when they rationally understood this choice undermined health and performance. The modern sleep industry, worth hundreds of billions of dollars globally, offered solutions ranging from scientifically validated to completely fraudulent. Weighted blankets, aromatherapy diffusers, meditation apps, supplements, smart mattresses, sleep coaching, and specialized lighting systems promise to restore natural rest that modern life had disrupted. Sleep science advanced dramatically in 21st century. We now understand that sleep serves functions beyond simple rest and recovery. It's essential for memory consolidation, immune system functioning, emotional regulation, and cellular repair. This knowledge makes our collective sleep crisis even more tragic, as we destroy something we now know to be irreplaceable. The rise of sleep disorders paralleled rise of digital technology. Sleep apnea rates increased dramatically, partly due to obesity, but also due to changes in sleep positioning and breathing patterns related to device use. Insomnia affected more than 30% of adults in developed countries. Delayed sleep phase syndrome, difficulty falling asleep at conventional times, became epidemic among young people. Climate change added another layer of complexity to modern sleep challenges. Rising temperatures made natural cooling more difficult. Extreme weather events disrupted sleep patterns through stress and environmental changes. Air pollution in urban areas affected sleep quality through respiratory impacts. The response to these challenges created a new category of human being, the sleep optimizer. These individuals approached rest with same systematic intensity that previous generations applied to physical fitness or financial planning. They tracked metrics, experimented with supplements, adjusted environments, and scheduled lives around sleep maintenance. Sleep cafes opened in major cities worldwide, spaces where people could pay to nap in controlled environments during daytime hours. This reflected profound disruption of natural rest patterns and commodification of something that was once simply part of being human. Perhaps most concerning was normalization of sleep deprivation. Professional cultures that rewarded extreme hours, social media cultures that celebrated late-night productivity, and educational systems that assigned workloads incompatible with adequate rest created environments where healthy sleep was seen as luxury rather than necessity. The 21st century brought unprecedented understanding of individual sleep needs. We now know that people have genetic variations in optimal sleep duration, timing preferences, and sensitivity to disruption. This knowledge offered hope for personalized approaches to sleep optimization, but also revealed how poorly our standardized schedules served individual biological needs. As we faced these modern challenges, some people returned to ancient wisdom. Digital detox retreats, where participants surrendered devices and returned to natural, light-dark cycles consistently produced dramatic improvements in sleep quality. This suggested that solutions to sleep crisis might require not just better technology, but conscious decisions to limit technology's role in lives. The irony of current moment was that we knew more about sleep than any previous generation, yet slept worse than almost any previous generation. We had created environments optimized for comfort, yet struggled to find rest. We had access to unlimited entertainment and information, yet lay awake wishing we could simply turn off our minds. Modern sleep research revealed that poor sleep affected every aspect of human health, increasing risk of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, depression, anxiety, and numerous other conditions. Sleep deprivation impaired immune function, making people more susceptible to infections including COVID-19. Chronic sleep loss accelerated aging processes and shortened lifespan. The economic costs of sleep deprivation were staggering. Lost productivity, workplace accidents, medical expenses related to sleep disorders totaled hundreds of billions of dollars annually in developed countries. Yet most institutions continued to operate as if sleep was optional, rather than essential for human functioning. Educational systems remained particularly resistant to sleep science, despite overwhelming evidence that adolescent circadian rhythms naturally shifted toward later bedtimes. High schools continued to start early, forcing teenagers to wake during their deepest sleep phases, contributing to epidemic of adolescent sleep deprivation. The modern sleep crisis represented collision between ancient biology and contemporary society. Human circadian rhythms evolved over millions of years to synchronize with natural light-dark cycles, but modern life demanded adaptation to artificial schedules that often conflicted with biological needs. Yet period also brought hope. New understanding of sleep importance motivated policy changes in some areas. Employers began to recognize that well-rested workers were more productive, leading to workplace wellness programs that included sleep. Education. Some schools experimented with later start times. Some cities implemented noise ordinances designed to protect sleep. The development of circadian lighting systems that adjusted color, temperature throughout day offered technological solution to some modern sleep problems. Blue light blocking glasses became popular among people trying to reduce evening light exposure. Sleep restriction therapy helped people with insomnia reset their sleep patterns. The growing awareness of sleep importance created market for sleep improvement products and services. Sleep coaching, meditation apps, specialized mattresses, and other solutions proliferated. Some were genuinely helpful. Others were marketing schemes that exploited people's desperation for better rest. Perhaps most significantly, modern period brought recognition that individual sleep problems often reflected larger social and environmental issues. Poor sleep was not personal failing, but symptom of society that prioritized productivity over health, artificial schedules over natural rhythms, individual achievement over collective well-being. The future of sleep remained uncertain as humanity struggled to balance benefits of technological progress with fundamental biological needs. Some experts predicted that genetic engineering might eventually allow humans to require less sleep. Others believed that artificial intelligence would reduce need for human cognitive performance, making sleep optimization less critical. What seemed clear was that current trajectory of increasing sleep deprivation was unsustainable. Human health, happiness, and even survival might depend on finding ways to protect and restore healthy sleep patterns in an increasingly complex and demanding world. The digital age sleep crisis represented a test of human wisdom. Could we learn to use technology in ways that supported rather than undermined biological needs? Could we create societies that honored rather than ignored fundamental requirements for rest? Could we find balance between modern opportunities and ancient needs? The answer would determine not just individual sleep quality, but future of human civilization itself. As we created ever more powerful technologies that could operate continuously, we faced choice, whether to adapt human biology to technological demands or adapt technology to human needs. The quality of future sleep might depend on wisdom of that choice. As we reach the end of our journey through 100,000 years of human sleep, we find ourselves standing at crossroads. Behind us lies rich history of rest traditions, each adapted to its time and place, each offering wisdom about what humans need to sleep well. Ahead lies uncertain future where technology and biology, ancient wisdom and modern challenges, individual needs and collective demands must somehow find balance. The story of human sleep reveals something profound about our species. We are endlessly adaptable yet fundamentally unchanged. Our ancestors in Stone Age caves created safety through community and fire. Medieval Europeans found peace through faith and ritual. Chinese emperors optimized rest through harmony and balance. Renaissance artists used sleep as source of creativity. Each era developed solutions appropriate to its challenges. Yet across all these different times and places, certain principles remain constant. Humans sleep best when they feel safe, when they follow natural rhythms, when they prepare consciously for rest, when they understand sleep as valuable rather than expendable, when their communities support rather than undermine healthy rest patterns. The modern sleep crisis is not inevitable. It is a result of choices we have made about how to organize society, how to use technology, how to prioritize different aspects of human experience. The same ingenuity that created problems can create solutions if we apply wisdom learned from our long history of human rest. Ancient Egyptians understood that sleep preparation was spiritual practice that created optimal conditions for restoration. Romans engineered environmental controls that supported consistent rest. Chinese physicians developed lifestyle modifications that worked with rather than against circadian rhythms. All of these approaches remain relevant for contemporary sleep. Challenges. The future of sleep may require integration of ancient wisdom with modern understanding. Traditional practices like sunset rituals, gradual light reduction, and community bedtime rhythms combined with scientific knowledge about circadian biology, sleep stages, and individual differences in rest needs. Modern sleep science validates many insights that traditional cultures understood intuitively. The importance of consistent schedules, the power of environmental design, the connection between daytime activities and nighttime rest, the role of mental preparation and sleep quality, all were practiced for thousands of years before being proven by research. Perhaps most importantly, our journey through sleep history reveals that rest is not an individual problem, but collective responsibility. The communities that slept best were those that organized themselves to support rather than undermine healthy sleep patterns, shared rhythms, protected quiet hours, and understood that individual well-being depended on collective wisdom. The Indus Valley Civilization created cities designed for peaceful sleep. Roman military maintained disciplined rest schedules that supported unit effectiveness. Islamic Golden Age scholars balanced intense learning with adequate recovery. Medieval monasteries developed schedules that honored both spiritual obligations and biological needs. These examples suggest that solving modern sleep crisis requires more than individual sleep hygiene or personal optimization. It requires social changes that prioritize rest over productivity, natural rhythms over artificial schedules, community well-being over individual achievement. Some encouraging developments point toward possible solutions. Cities experimenting with noise ordinances that protect sleep hours. Schools adjusting start times to match adolescent circadian rhythms. Employers recognizing that well-rested workers are more creative and productive. Companies creating workplace policies that respect employees' need for recovery time. The technology that disrupted traditional sleep patterns might also provide solutions. Circadian lighting systems that adjust throughout day. Sleep tracking. Devices that help people understand their individual patterns. blue light blocking technologies that reduce evening stimulation, smart home systems that create optimal sleeping environments. But technological solutions alone will not be sufficient. The deeper challenge is cultural, developing shared understanding that sleep is not luxury but necessity, not weakness but foundation for strength, not time stolen from productivity but investment in optimal performance. Traditional cultures understood sleep as sacred time worthy of protection, preparation, and respect. They recognize that how a society treats rest reveals its values, its priorities, its understanding of what makes life worth living. They knew that communities that sleep well together thrive together. The return to rest does not mean abandoning modern conveniences or returning to pre-industrial lifestyle. It means integrating best insights from human sleep history with contemporary knowledge and capabilities. It means creating 21st century solutions that honor ancient biological needs. Children growing up today will face sleep challenges that previous generations could not imagine. Always connected devices, global work schedules, climate change, and other stressors. Yet they will also have access to sleep science, nutrition knowledge, and environmental controls that could support better rest than any previous generation if we choose to use these tools wisely. The future of human sleep depends on choices we make today. Whether we design cities that support or disrupt circadian rhythms, whether we create work cultures that honor or ignore biological needs, whether we use technology to enhance or undermine natural rest patterns, whether we prioritize short-term productivity or long-term human flourishing. Our ancestors survived ice ages, built civilizations, created art, and advanced knowledge while maintaining sleep patterns that supported their health and creativity. They demonstrate that it is possible to achieve great things while also honoring fundamental biological needs. They remind us that sustainable progress requires balance between ambition and rest. The wisdom of 100,000 years of human sleep can be summarized in simple principles. Create environments that feel safe. Follow rhythms that align with natural cycles. Prepare consciously for rest. Understand sleep as valuable investment in tomorrow. View rest as community responsibility rather than individual luxury. These principles transcend specific historical periods or cultural contexts. They represent universal human needs that remain constant despite technological change. They offer foundation for creating sleep cultures that support human flourishing. In any era, the great sleep experiment continues. Each night, millions of people around the world conduct personal investigations into rest and recovery. Some sleep deeply, others struggle with insomnia. Some dream vividly, others barely remember their visions. All participate in ancient ritual that connects them to every human who has ever lived. As you prepare for your own rest tonight, wherever you are in the world, whatever challenges you face in finding peaceful sleep, remember that you are part of a story that stretches back to first humans, who ever closed their eyes in trust that morning would come. You carry within your body wisdom of 100,000 years of human sleep. Your circadian rhythms remember African savanna where our species first looked up at stars. Your need for safety and warmth echoes cave fires our ancestors tended. Through long nights, your dreams connect you to same mysterious realm that Egyptian pharaohs, Chinese emperors, medieval monks, and Renaissance artists all explored in their sleep. The future of human sleep is being written each night by choices individuals make about how to prepare for rest, how to create sleeping environments, How to balance modern demands with ancient needs. The accumulated wisdom of our species suggests that good sleep is possible even in challenging times, if we remember what humans truly need to rest well. Sleep well, fellow travelers. Rest in knowledge that you are part of humanity's longest, deepest story. The story of how our species learned to trust darkness, to surrender control, and to find in sleep not escape from life, but preparation for living more fully. The night that surrounds you as you listen to these words is same darkness that has embraced every human generation. The stars that shine above tonight are same ones our ancestors used to navigate across continents and through cave. Time, the rest you seek, connects you to everyone who has ever struggled to find peace in an uncertain world. Tomorrow when you wake, you will carry forward this ancient story, adding your own chapter to ongoing experiment in human rest and recovery. The quality of your sleep tonight becomes part of larger narrative about how our species adapts to changing conditions while honoring unchanging needs. May your dreams be peaceful, may your rest be restorative, and may you wake tomorrow knowing that you are heir to 100,000 years of human wisdom about finding peace in darkness, trusting in tomorrow, and using sleep as foundation for whatever challenges and opportunities await. Sweet dreams, and thank you for joining this journey through time. Until we meet again in space between sleeping and waking, where all best stories are born.